Good evening. It is January 11th, 2022. It is 7:02 p.m. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here is your board president, Namjack.
Good evening. With respect to closed session, I have one item to report. The Board of Education voted unanimously during closed session to approve the agreements with respect to the following students. OAH case number 653 and OAH case number 312. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance will be, I believe, will you be introducing our lovely?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Jack. Today we have the honor of Sophia Elena Osbrooks to lead our board in the flag salute.
Hello. Do I say for everyone to stand?
Yes, please.
Everyone, please rise. Put your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to say a few words about San Marino High School, just real quick. It really is a unique experience. No other place is so close-knit that you get to know these staff personally and you feel like they truly care about your well-being. You could feel that through, they provide the Wellness Center, which has free therapy for students, which I've seen have a remarkable impact on the mental health of everyone around me, to making college level courses accessible to even freshmen. It really feels like a really nice community. And when things happen, it's truly magical because everyone's just so close and it's so unique and personalized and just, it's just really nice. It's a nice place. Thank you.
Thank you. We're lucky to have excellent and nice students like you, Sophia. So thank you so much for coming today and taking your time to do this. We have a certificate for you, Sophia. So thank you very, very, very much. It says December 7th. I don't know why.
So Sophia, if you'd like to just come up on stage and we'll take a photograph when we present you with the certificate, that would be great. Stephen, can you take the photo?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's yeah. President Jack, perfect. Thank you.
1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
December 7th.
Thank you.
All right. We will now start with item 6B, approval of the agenda. I'd like someone to make a motion to approve the agenda with a second afterwards, please. Mrs. Ryan makes a motion, second.
Second. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Mrs. Chan, a motion's on the floor, so we'll do a roll call. Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack, aye. So the agenda has been approved. Now we will move on to item number 6C, approval. Oh, I'm so, okay, I am new at this, clearly. So student board representative, and I apologize.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now it is unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chang, for reminding me. Now we go to item number 6C, approval of minutes. Action item with respect to 2 sets of board minutes. First one being December 1, 2021. Are there any revisions to be made with respect to that particular Date? None being made, then I would like a motion and a second with respect to the approval of the December 1 meeting minutes.
I so move.
Mr. Kalaki makes the motion second.
Second.
Mr. Chang, with that being made, roll call vote, please. Mrs. Ryan?
I have to abstain.
Yes. Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mrs. Jack? Aye. The board minutes, school board member, please. Thank you. Thank you. Board minutes pass. With respect to December 7th board meeting minutes, does anyone have any changes to them? I actually do. With respect to item number, under action item number 13B, appointment to board committees. Under PTA council representative, instead of my name, I would like it to say president, because every year it's the same. It's just the president of the board that is designated that person. And then also with respect to the San Marino Schools Foundation, I'd like it, instead of Mrs. Jack, to say president, because the person who is representing the school district is a president, and I think that will help future boards as well. So with those two changes regarding item 13B, appointment to board committees, if that is fine with everyone, if someone could make a motion to approve the minutes, I would appreciate it.
With a modification, I like to move to approve for
Thank you.
the December 7 Board of Education meeting minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. A second?
I can second that.
Mrs. Ryan, roll call vote, please. Mr. Kalaki?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan?
Aye.
Mrs. Jack? Aye. School board member?
Aye.
Thank you. Board minutes unanimously passed for December 7th. Now we're item 7, public comments. The Board of Education has adopted board policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the school district. Persons who wish to provide public comment have 3 options to submit public comments. 1, through an online form. 2, during the meeting via Zoom. 3, request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. Submit through an online form. The public may submit public comments for open or closed session on January 11th from 11 a.m. through 3:30 p.m. Comments received during this time will not be read during the meeting, but will be provided to the Board of Education. I believe, Dr. Choi, that no submissions were made as of 3:30 today. Thank you, Dr. Choi. Second option is request to speak during the meeting via Zoom. During the public comment, the meeting will pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak. The raise hand function is used to take requests during the public comment period. For online attendees, please press the raise hand icon to add yourself to the queue. For phone attendees, dial *9. The speaking order will be determined based on the order of requests received. Individual speakers will be unmuted and called to speak. Third option, request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card. Please complete the public comment card and submit the completed card in the designated drop box with the assistant to the superintendent no later than when the agenda section, items not on the agenda, consent information action, is called by the board president. Opportunities for public comment are offered prior to closed session, at the start of the regular open session for items not on the agenda, and prior to the consent information action items for matters on the agenda. The Board of Education reserves the right to add a public comment period prior to any individual item on the agenda. 5 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. However, in the event there are more than 4 speakers on the same subject matter, the board president retains the discretion to adjust and limit the time allocated to each speaker to ensure that all wishing to speak will be heard within the 20-minute allotment. 7A, communications from the audience regarding matters not on the agenda are to be made at this time.
1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card.
Dr. Choi, these are for matters not on the agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Want to bring it up?
And we have 30 seconds remaining. If you would like to make a request to speak regarding matters not on the agenda, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, President Jack, we have one request via Zoom.
All right.
Okay, San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. This is Letty Aranda, president of the SMTA. And my opening comment is simply a message. It is an urging for the board and all those who are tuned in this evening. And my urgency, my beckoning to you is to please consider what it means to be all in and all in together. Please consider what it means to work, play, negotiate, struggle, learn as one. Please consider the things we model for our students when we talk about fairness and when we talk about sustaining one another. At Valentine School, we talk a lot about heart, and we put our hearts into the way we interact and in our doings. I urge the board to very carefully consider the comments that will be made throughout this board meeting. They are not made lightly, and they are most definitely made in a spirit of communication, of openness, and of a desire to do what is right. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for all your efforts. And please, please remember that we're always watched, we're always an example, and there's nothing wrong with doing what's right. Thank you.
We also have received 3 public comment cards, and the order that they were received is number 1, Rudy Kraus. Your address is in Riverside, sir?
Yes, I can't put my address because of it.
Oh, of course. So you wanted to talk about the COVID virus parasite.
Yeah, I'm talking about the COVID virus parasite. This is my book. Anthropologically, looking at it biogenetically in terms of eugenics, the chimeric effect and the symbiotic effect of the vaccination, the vaccine.
Sir, I'm sorry. We require that we have you wear your vaccine indoors as well.
Wear
And
my
I'm sorry.
vaccine? You mean
I'm
my
sorry,
mask?
your mask, and I'm sorry, over the nose as well. I apologize.
I can't breathe. I really can't breathe. So, you know, I know that you guys can't breathe and the kids can't breathe, but you guys are enforcing something that is detrimental to my health and to their health. 20% oxygen reduction and all that CO2 inhalation. So that's feeding the virus. It's a parasite.
Sir,
It's
at a
an
minimum,
anaerobic
sir,
virus.
yeah.
There. You happy?
Thank
Now, can
you.
I have my time back?
Thank you.
Okay. My book, Origin of the Species, Homo sapien vaccinicus. COVID, human COVID symbiote. You've become symbiotes. You vax the parasite in you. It is a parasite. All virus are parasites. They ground up that COVID vulgaris parasite, a water hydra parasite, been around from the Devonian, 400 million years, the corona family, in an atomic blender, and put that in the vaccine, and they shot that parasite juice in you. And you want to shoot that into the kids too.
I'm very sorry, but you're going to have to wear the mask.
I've got it. I'm holding it so I can talk.
You're not having it over your face.
Okay, there. Are you happy? Okay, and I find it really, really funny. And I'm gonna tell you right now that when you're of a different race and you're up here and you have to be 100% correct, and why are you not right on this topic? That's like someone from who's Black Lives Matter or critical race theory. There's an agenda there. You're part of this agenda. You're playing both sides against the middle. Here's the virus. Here's the parasite. The famous Dr. Madej photograph. Right here. That's what you shot in your body. You're going to turn into this. This is chimeric science. My book is 150 pages, 150,000 words long already, right from the start. This spike protein is the DNA and eggs that make this COVID virus parasite. This grows inside your body. Look at the Zalewski films. Look at the German doctors, the ones from Quinta Columba, the top doctors in the world, the ones that have the nerve, the gall to take microscopies of this. And that's not an easy thing because all those vaccines have lot numbers to them. And they keep them under guarded surveillance. And they have to get them and put them underneath a microscope and do it all on their own. Now,
I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to have to ask you one more time to please put the mask on. over
it
your
keeps
mouth.
on falling off. What am I supposed to do?
Thank you.
You invented this technology. I mean, all these come from China. These are all right here. They all have graphene oxide on them, just like the jab. The jab has little hooks on it. They reach up your nose and they pull out your DNA, break the blood-brain barrier between your brain and the nasal cavity. That's graphene oxide is a poison. It's cancerous. 90% of the vaccine is graphene oxide. It's nanotechnology. Do you even know what graphene oxide is? It's the graphite that's in a pencil, but they take it down to one atom and then they put a sheet of it, just all one atom thick. It's a superconductor. It's going to replace all of the silicone chips. It's 4,000 times stronger than titanium. That's what you shot in your body. Listen, here's the last thing I want to say. You have a parasite in you. The parasite does not want to be inside the host. The parasite wants to be the host. It is a highly intelligent form of life. You're not going to win this. It has immortal stem cells. You will look like a parasite 3 generations down. I'm waiting for the Spiegel variant. All of you got vaxxed. You're all variants. You all got 1 billion variants inside of you. Multiply that by 1 billion people. 99.9% of all mutations, they die.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list,
I'm sorry. May we take a moment just to respect the podium between speakers?
yes, I would be more than happy to make that request. Do we have somebody who can help us do that?
Thank you very much. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delatorre. All right, the second speaker on the list is Dennis Neer of 1425 Hampton Road. Thank you. San Marino. Mr. Neer would like to talk about the mini grants.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the school board and staff. I'm here, my name is Dennis Neary, she said. I'm here on behalf of the Rotary Club of San Marino and its charitable arm, San Marino Rotary Charities. And I'm here to give you just a little bit of background, and then I'll get down to something that I hope makes you relatively happy. In terms of background, the Rotary Club, at first through the generosity of Andy Barth, annually gave to all the schools in total $20,000 a year to help the teachers. It was to do projects with the teachers. And that has continued to this day, but it has expanded. What happened in 2007, the Rotary Charities set up an endowment fund to support these, what we call mini grants. They're small grants, say $500 or $100, or it could be more, to individual teachers to help them in the classroom. So that was the whole idea. Well, we've done well with the endowment, and this year, the Rotary Club and Charities is making awards of $60,000. And the way that we do that, we take the $60,000 and we split it in half. $30,000 is split up among the 7 schools, you know, your 4 or 5 schools, St. Felicitas, Claiborne, and Southwestern. The other 30,000 is allocated to those schools based upon the enrollment of the school. So we got a fixed amount and kind of a variable amount. And that's what we have done. And we met with great cooperation with the Superintendent De La Torre. She's helped us on this. She's had meetings so we could meet with the principals. And Linda, we thank you very much for your cooperation. You've done a terrific job in making this program work. So now to cut down to the chase, the way this formula works out means that the San Marino Unified School District gets $42,571 to go to the teachers. And then smaller amounts go to the others because you have more students and that sort of thing. So on behalf of the Rotary Club and Rotary Charities, with your permission, I'd like to give to the president, I'll bring this up, how we go through the computations. And then the second envelope is the same computations, but it has the check in it. So, ma'am, you don't get the money, she gets the money.
Could
So
I have the second envelope first? Mr. Neary?
Switch them up. You can, which hand is it in? Huh? Yeah. Anyway, that's the whole deal. Rotary is really happy to support the teachers. We've given a grant for the safety thing, some 21,000. Now we give another 40-some thousand for the teachers. We know that the teachers have things that they could use and get funding for outside of what normal funding they get or their own pocketbook to help their students. And that's what this money is for. So the way we're going to do it, we used to go ask the teachers, give us a proposal on what you would need the money for. And now that the awards have gotten bigger and Mr. COVID is hanging around, it becomes more complicated to do that. So what we do is we give all the money to this, the school district. They give it to the individual schools working, and so it's up to the principals to work with the teachers and do the right thing for the amount of money that they have for their schools. And we trust them to do that. We do ask, though, when this whole process is over, say in June or July, that they give us a report back. I mean, most people that give money want to know where it went. So we're going to ask which teachers got the money, what they use it for, and we'll be all happy campers and we'll start over again next year. Now, I don't know what it's going to be next year. Last year, it was 30,000. The year before, it was 35,000. This year, it's 60,000. The stock market was good and our endowment could do that. And we'll do what we can in the futures, but I can't make any promises on what it's going to be. We'll be as generous as we can. So that's enough of listening to me through this crazy mask. So I'll come up and give the 2 envelopes. We're done.
$35,000 from last year then. It seemed like you shortchanged me from last year. Jane, you're gonna have to watch it for the following year.
Check my calendar for next year.
Thank you, thank you. All right, is that?
Thank you, Dennis, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
Did she get the check envelope? I got the explanation envelope. Thank you so much, Mr. Neer. Thank you so much for everything you do in the community and to Rotary for their commitment to the schools. It is so appreciative, and that's one of the reasons we're so lucky to be living here in San Marino.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Next, our third speaker is Mrs. Stephanie Duncan of 669 Chaucer Road. If you could come up to the microphone, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. So proper. You know, it's really awfully tall for me. I don't know how you do this. Well, anyway, I think you can probably hear me. I wanted to tell everybody Happy New Year, number one. And also, I want to preface by saying that I have not talked to Dr. Delatorre, nor have I talked to Dr. Rickner about what I'm about ready to say to the board right now. Interesting, over the Christmas holiday, I was at a party and I had some of my friends who are in my generation come up to me and say, why is it that Dr. Delatorre is not being named superintendent for the next 3 years? They're really confused by it. I know that Mrs. Chung had said to me that it was because she didn't have an academic background, which I think is kind of strange since the LA Unified School District superintendent did not have one, and he seemed to do just fine. It was really an odd question and I really didn't know how to answer it. So I would really like to know from each and every one of you why it is that you have a perfectly good superintendent sitting right next to you and you choose to go out and look for somebody else. Also, this district does not have the money to go out and look for somebody else. Linda has, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the article in the Pasadena News, but she was written up for the COVID. Her and actually Dr. Chong were also mentioned in that too, about how she's handling COVID. I really do think that you guys owe an explanation to the community as to why it is that you are going to be spending money and going out for a superintendent. Linda has done a great job. The teachers union support her, parents support her. I don't really understand it. Mr. Clackey, I know that you were the only one who did not support giving her the money if she decided to stay for the next 2 years. I thought, oh, there you go. I thought that that was really kind of a blow to her. And I also think that, I don't know if you know Jason Kurtenbach, he was principal at Huntington. He went from there to the district, got a raise, went from the district to the high school, and they kept his salary at the district level. So why you wouldn't think that Dr. Delatorre should be having the same amount of money, I don't really understand what your vote was all about. It was very disappointing, actually. And, you know, I supported you before, and I don't, as I said to you in my living room, I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know which, you know, where you're coming from anymore, and it's just kind of disappointing. But anyway, I do support her. I wish you guys would rethink this whole thing over. She deserves to be here for the next 2 years, and you couldn't ask for anybody better. And also, I wanted to thank her and also Dr. Rickner about summer school will be approved, was approved June the 1st. And it's because of their connections in the community with these people that we got it so fast tracked. We tried before, Kelly Duncan and I tried before, it was going to take forever to get this. And because of the people that they know and the people that they respect these people, this is why we are now going to be WASP approved. So I want you guys to really think about this. I think you guys owe it to the community to tell us why it is that you're not supporting her for the next 2 years. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Duncan. All right, we are now Item number 8, consent section, consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions with respect to the consent agenda items?
I do have a question.
Mr. Kalaki?
On item 8C,
President Jack, we actually should do public comments for a comment
That are on the agenda.
on the agenda.
Oh, I'm
In the
sorry.
consent section.
7B. Oh, I
7B.
apologize. I'm very rusty. I'm sorry. Communications from the audience regarding matters on the consent agenda are to be made at this time. We'll start the time, Dr. Choi.
Okay. Thank you. We're pausing for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the consent section.
And thank you for the reminder.
If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Thirty seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, President Jack, we have one request from the San Marino Teachers Association. San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Choi. I would simply like to give thanks, a heartfelt thanks, to those parents who are from Carver, Valentine, Huntington, and San Marino, and even Mr. and Mrs. Liu, who donated over $100,000 to our district and did so without an agenda, without an attached message, did so with the intent of supporting wonderful programs. What a beautiful example of everyone working together to make and keep our district a lovely place to be. I'm simply sharing a heartfelt thank you, no strings attached. Thank you so much for giving and for trusting our district with the decisions they make to make our students' experiences the best. Once again, thank you from your San Marino Teachers Association.
Going to the consent section. I'm sorry, Mr. Kalaki, I believe you had a question.
thank you. On item 8C, contracts and agreements, report 2021-22, number 13. I have a question, and I was also approached by members of the community with the same question. And so that's why I'm bringing it up again after asking previously. But with regard to the last item on that table, Ryan Ferran, each of the items lists a specific dollar amount, but Mr. Ferran, it states the amount is hourly plus additional costs as needed. It doesn't state what the hourly amount is, and it doesn't state the number of hours or what the costs are. And the concern from multiple people in the community was, it appears as though there's no limit on what that item could include. Can we get some explanation of what that would be, please?
Yes, as I stated in my email to you earlier, Ryan Ferran is a professional public information officer, and most school districts in California have a full-time PIO, and we do not. And so we've had a contract with Mr. Ryan Ferran previously in 2008, I believe it was 18-19. And his rate is $185 an hour. So we have him on contract. We have renewed his contract for up to 100 hours, which is in essence 2.5 weeks total. He will need to submit a timesheet or an invoice, excuse me, in order to be paid for work that is completed. He can assist with our social media presence. He can write publications for the school district. He would be highly qualified to do any public relations work for either the school district or the Board of Education. As an example, if we were to make a change, we would need, to consult with a PIO possibly to communicate that change on the direction that the district is going in. And so, yeah, that's essentially what I put into my email to you earlier, and
I appreciate
that's
that.
the response to that.
So, okay, so the max, it would be up to 18,500, or the contract is for 18,500?
The contract is for $185 an hour, not to exceed 100 hours. So up to 100 hours. And we may not use the full time, so it's as needed. And
Okay,
you can have a copy of the contract. That's a public document. So anybody who wants that can request it and receive it.
I appreciate it.
Through the end of June 2022. That's when the contract will expire. So we're looking at, the second part of the year.
Any more questions? All right,
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
with that, would someone like to make a motion to approve the matters on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mrs. Chan makes the motion. A second, please.
I'd like to second.
Second,
Mrs. Ryan, I'm sorry. Roll call vote. We're going to start with Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
our wonderful school board member.
Aye.
Thank you, ma'am. Jack, board president, aye. All right. Consent section motion passes unanimously. All right, now we come to item number 9, communication section, communications from the Board of Education. We'd like to start with Mr. Kalaki. Would you like to begin for us?
Yes, thank you. I have, most of the time that I've had related to the school board since our last meeting has been with communication from various members of the community, asking questions about what exactly the amount of absences are at each of the campuses, not only for the full day, but also for periods of the day, hours of instruction that may be impacted both for students as well as instructors. I would like to request specifics on that. Again, I had requested it previously, hadn't received it yet, but if we could please be provided that, it would be very helpful to let us know what the impact is, particularly with regard to COVID and the current surge. I've also received communications from members of the community asking again for a search for a superintendent. They had indicated that there were discussions about that in the past. The current superintendent has a period of employment that's going to end in that period, in that position at the end of June. And so I would like to request that we begin possibly moving forward in that respect.
Thank you, Mr. Kalaki. Mr. Chang?
Before the New Year, I attend the high school music program regarding for the orchestra. I always impress, the Mr. Forsen leadership, they train the student, from the A grade to the 9, and then eventually go to the senior. So you can see each grade, they have a lot of difference and improvement. I believe this our key program. We are very proud, within the unified school district, most students they can play the instrument. And secondly, before the new year, before the new semester begin, I mentioned to our board president and also superintendent, I said we had to be prepared. As you know, my background, each day I receive probably more than the 30 article from the national wide and the international. especially for the COVID-19. The time we still don't know the Omicron, the effective, yeah. But I'm glad the school district, the superintendent leadership, and then instruct our COVID-19 compliance officer, yeah. So we have well prepared. So then with the first week, yeah, we don't have too much surprise come out. I said this is always a comparison, to the other school district. I want to say that I'm proud of our school district. Vaccination rate is higher than the other school district. That's the assurance. Right now we still hanging there, but I'm not saying we don't have to worry. But instead of I want to encourage superintendent and the compliance officer, just be prepared, because next 2 weeks, you can see if Omicron and they drop, then probably maybe ending or may another variant may come out. So when you deal with public health, you just need to prepare every day. And then lastly, I know every day, and the parent, they push me, they say, oh, you have to tell your school district either to close or whatever. But I want them, if we prepare, so the parents should not worry, because this school district actually behind the scene every day we are monitor the situation, and I believe right now the first week to the second week the number go up, because during the vacation period, I think every family is more relaxed, go everywhere. So even the San Bernardino community may be more than 90%, but you go outside, that doesn't give a guarantee. But end up, right now, go back to the study period. I think the parent should be patient, not let your kid go to outside of a community if possible. I say if possible, because the outside, you don't know whether they already get the vaccine or no. So the whole 10 days, I'm doing helping for the booster vaccine clinic. Yeah. So I'm trying to make sure, this community have a more even higher or highest, the third shot, the vaccination rate. In the meantime, I know each person have a different opinion. Just like the gentleman, I respect each people, your own opinion. But I want to say, for the human being history, the vaccine, I think, is effective. Don't discount, the vaccine is just like a parasite. Okay. So if you don't want to do it, it's your own destiny. My family have two working in the tertiary care in a hospital. I think they have a lot of data. So they approve if you don't get a vaccine, when you become an inpatient, you have a more chance to die. So if you don't care about yourself, it's okay, but please take care for other family. It's very important. We are in this community during the pandemic. Everyone needs to work together to make sure, we can overcome the pandemic. That's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. Mrs. Chan?
Thank you. I had to go back in my calendar in a while. So I completely forgot that I actually attended the CSBA conference after our last board meeting. That was great. It was 2 days, it was virtual. It was a great opportunity to hear about all of the different work everyone's doing around trauma, around budgets. And it's a great opportunity to learn and continue to learn my role. Anybody wants to talk more about that, happy to do so. Secondly, for myself, I spent the time during winter break to think about something I was reading called The End of Trauma by Dr. Granado. And I bring it up because I thought it was a very insightful look at how we deal with exiting from COVID. The book was written before COVID had taken place. He obviously had been working on it for a long time, and he added a chapter, and I'm still halfway through it. So I'll let you know what I think at the very end of it. But the takeaway that I'm really enjoying is this idea of needing to move into a flexibility mindset. And as we're really continuing to grapple with COVID, really thinking about what is required of us as we continue to struggle with it, I think having a flexibility mindset is very helpful for me, knowing that we plan and plan and plan, and then we may have to change course. And so being willing to do that as part of a mindset to be able to cope and to be able to plan, and yet in the midst of all that, be compassionate to others and to ourselves as well, which leads to my third point. We're all starting off with a fresh start with the new semester. We've got kids launching in all different directions in different ways, whether online, in person, limited, not limited. I know that everybody's been really stressed this past week. I acknowledge that. I think families have been really struggling with trying to navigate the issue, and our staff. I want to give a huge thank you to our staff, not just for how they handled COVID last week and this week, but for being kind enough to our community to come back healthy, to be mindful of what was needed for our students, for them to come back and be healthy. A lot of school districts are shutting down, not necessarily because of COVID, but because they don't have the staffing capacity, because their staff is testing positive. And for me to look at our community and know that our staff sacrificed themselves so that we could come back in person safely is just so humbling. And I'm grateful for that. On top of all of the amazing amount of work that our staff did last week and continue to do this week. And a huge thank you to our families as well, because I think our families are really trying to be responsible and considerate of one another and each other's choices. And I think as we continue to look ahead, we need to keep practicing compassion to be able to get through this time. And so that we're on the other side of it, hopefully in not too long a period from now, on the other side of the surge, that we will be able to continue to press forward with whatever comes next for our school district. And on that note, I also attended the State of the City address from the mayor yesterday, which was great. She just outlined everything. If you missed it, I highly encourage everybody to go to the city website. I believe it's been recorded, and she's also doing it again on the 18th. And that is just so important for us because we're really partners with our city, and working together through the pandemic has been a perfect example of how that partnership works.
Thank you, Mrs. Chan. Mrs. Ryan?
Thank you. On that note, I'd also like to talk a little bit about the school board address, which is on Monday, January 24th, January 24th, where our own Mrs. Namjack, our president, will be speaking. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. Why did you look so sad? Okay.
Surprise.
Yes. And so I'm looking forward to that. And thank you, Mrs. Chan, for pointing out the city's address. In December, prior to Christmas, I attended the San Marino Schools Foundation. I would like to thank the Schools Foundation for their work this year. It's been an incredible journey. It's a long one, and they have risen to the task. And thank you so much for all of their support. Rotary as well. I would be remiss if I did not thank the Rotary for all of their contributions, not only for our safety grant monies, but also to our teachers' mini grants. I also attended a couple of classes through virtual CSBA. I attended one on budget, but most of the ones that I attended had to do with diversity and inclusion and justice. And then as well, I attended the APISMA, Asian Pacific Islander School Board Members Association, and their presentation on specifically API needs. And this past weekend, Dr. Choi and I attended the City Club retreat in Palm Desert, correct? Palm Desert. And the last thing I kind of want to say is, like my fellow board members, I want to thank the staff, cabinet, the teachers for all that they've done. It's been 2 years of challenges, and what teachers and students and families have done is that they've been able to be resilient and to demonstrate flexibility in the way in which they approach education. So thank you, teachers, staff, and our families. And finally, the last thing is I want to echo what Mr. Chang said earlier regarding COVID. It is critical that we continue to examine our own practices and what we do in our families as we overcome or go through this surge. The school district has put in place layers of safety protocols, and that is to Dr. Delatorre and her cabinet's ability to navigate through all of this pandemic with our community. And so thank you so much for all that you have done, not only through independent study, but how you have led in terms of staffing and how we've addressed student needs. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. With respect to my particular communication, as most people know, my communications are very, very brief. But tonight it'll be a little longer. So I feel like I've amassed all those minutes, and so I will use them tonight. And the reason why I would like to use it is, this is really the first board meeting that, I preside over as the president of the board. So I would like to make some statements. As we begin the new year of 2022, I don't know whether you guys have ever played the game Jenga, where you stack all the wooden blocks into a sturdy structure and you take turns pulling out the blocks one by one. If you pull out the wrong one, everything falls down. You realize that everything is connected. And I guess that is what I think of when I think of the success of our school district. Everything is interconnected. If one does not work, we all fail. If everything works, we succeed. So we would not be here today opening up our schools without our interconnected building blocks. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that our team has done an extraordinary job due to the outstanding efforts of our Superintendent Delatorre, our Executive Director, Lena Richter, our Chief Technology Officer and COVID Compliance Officer, Stephen Choi, and the rest of your cabinet. Our principals, Jason Kirkenbach, Daryl Topalian, Michael Lynn, Alana Foray, and their assistant principals. Our invaluable partnership with the San Marino Teachers Association, their president, Letty Aranda, and her leadership team, and the exceptional teachers they represent. CSEA, their president, Margaret Lindsay, and her leadership team, and the special members they represent. The PTA Council and their president, Catherine Oliveras, PTA presidents, Jennifer Schwang, Jackie Schwang, Juani Shen, Aaron Clarity, and their executive committee. San Marino Schools Foundation, their president, Erin Belvato, and her executive team. And of course, all of our community partners, including Rotary, for helping us. And then finally, but no mention the least, our exceptional parents and their stellar students. We have all come together during this unprecedented time requiring us all to have what we all have said again and again, unlimited patience and flexibility, dedicated to the primary goal of trying to keep our students safe under the ever-changing state, county, local laws and guidelines, which have limited us at the present time to only 2 options to educate our students: in school or independent study. On behalf of this entire Board of Education, I would like to state that we will never, ever take our responsibility lightly. We will endeavor to do the best that we can for all our students. We will endeavor to treat each one of your children as if they were our very, very own. January, I don't know whether you guys know, is School Board Recognition Month. And I would like to read and at times paraphrase something from the CSBA president, Dr. Susan Heredia. Back to school is always a major undertaking, but this year's version has been especially momentous as California school districts are open for full-time in-person instruction. While that is a cause for relief in many respects, it also brings a set of daunting tasks for school governance teams trying to navigate the ongoing pandemic, safety concerns for students, complications of independent study laws, and strategies to unlock learning recovery. This gauntlet of challenges has taken its toll on boards. Stories of protest, disruption, trustee recalls, parent complaints, and disregard for state and local laws, as well as the loss of common decency, the loss of civility in public spaces. In this environment, sometimes it's easy to lose sight of our most important mission, which is to provide an environment in which students can thrive academically and socially. This is another one of the reasons why I believe San Marino is so very, very special. We have been able to weather the storm because of our administration, our teachers, our principals, our parents, and our students, but also the 5 members of this board. So I would like to thank and commend each and every one of you. As you know, while we wear many hats in our work life, school board members put on a collective hat, pulling together as a team towards a common goal, helping students. We have each tried our best to work together, understanding that our duty is first and foremost to our students. Our obligation is to uphold the law. Our responsibility is to work together in the public interest to ensure student learning is not compromised. I would like to end tonight, by saying something as NAMJAC, not the board member, but as a parent to all the parents of our community, especially in these unprecedented COVID times. If I were to give advice to my younger self, I would say there would have been more I love yous, more I'm sorry's, more I'm listening. But mostly, given another shot at life, I would seize every moment of it, look at it and really see it, try it on, live it, exhaust it, and never, never give a minute back until there's nothing left. So my personal NAMJAC advice is your time with your children will be over in what seems to be a blink of an eye. I shake my head because I wished I had taken a few more minutes to enjoy my children's K-12 school years. Let where they are now be just as important as what you plan on them going. Each moment that we are given with them should be cherished for all it does to prepare for where they eventually will be. So whether the moments are of sadness, whether the moments are of tears, whether the moments are full of laughter, whether the moments are filled with joy, cherish those moments, whatever they may be. Cherish them because your children won't be children forever. So thank you very much. And now our communications from the superintendent.
How are you going to follow that?
Well, let me wipe my tears. That was beautiful. President Jack, thank you so much from your heart. That is one of the things that I most admire about you, your ability to do that. Thank you. So I, like our wonderful President Jack, am going to take a little bit of extra time this evening to update the Board of Education since we have been away on winter break. we haven't had as many opportunities to talk about things that are happening at the district level and at our schools. And so we're going to do that this evening. So bear with me. As Mrs. Ryan mentioned, the district is going to deliver its state of the district address on Monday, January 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. It will be held in this space in the Huntington Middle School auditorium. We're very, very excited about that. The comprehensive presentation will discuss the Board of Education's 2021-22 goals, and it will align all of the districts and the school sites' actions to those goals. The district will present on current and proposed innovative instructional programs, the district's fiscal health, the district-wide staffing plans for the future. We're going to talk about enrollment, technology, facilities, and each principal will have the opportunity to present on the state of their schools. We're really excited about this. It's going to be a big event. We were originally planning to have our visual and performing arts programs come and provide us with some entertainment. And that just isn't going to work out in this environment because of COVID. So what we will do instead is we're going to try to put together a video collage or tribute to our visual and performing arts programs at each of the schools. And I really look forward to sharing that with each of you, with our community and our public. I think it's going to be a wonderful event. I invite you all to attend, and it will be live streamed. So if you can't be here in person, socially distanced, wearing your mask, then you will have the opportunity to watch the district's state of the district address from the comfort of your own home. We will also record it so that if you miss it, you will have an opportunity to watch it at your convenience. We're doing a lot of things right now. We have a lot of balls in the air. One of the most important things that we are doing is managing the COVID pandemic. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and give you specifics and testing numbers, case numbers, all of the things that you are wondering about. We're going to discuss in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, I wanted to let you know that the district executive team has been evaluating the feasibility of an early college academy at San Marino High School. We have been evaluating a medical arts and law pathway. Those are some of the programs that we are reviewing, studying, and evaluating to determine whether or not that would be a good fit for our schools. We have included the principals in those conversations. We've gone out to other high schools to look at their medical arts and law pathways. We're going to continue to do that, and we're going to bring that information back to our Board of Education for their consideration. In addition to that, we are reviewing the possibility of dual immersion at the elementary. And so that's something that I think we've been looking at for a very long time, and something that I think that our students can benefit from. We are looking at the possibility of a Spanish dual immersion program. We know that one of our community partners, the Chinese Club and Chinese School, are providing Chinese instruction on Saturdays. So a lot of our children are already bilingual, and this would give our kids an opportunity to become trilingual. And we think that that is a very valuable thing for our parents and families, but we are looking at that, and we'll talk more to the Board of Education once we gather all of that information at a later date. So again, more information on these and other programs is going to be presented on Monday, January 24th at our State of the District Address. At the next meeting, I will provide the Board of Education with a timeline and a list of potential consultants who can assist the Board of Education in recruiting and securing their next superintendent. So that will be on the agenda for our next meeting on the 25th. Also wanted to share that Senator Portantino, who lives in La Cañada, recently introduced an enrollment-based funding bill for K-12 schools. Senate Bill 830 is a measure that is going to determine funding for K-12 schools based on the daily average student enrollment numbers. Currently, funding is received by California public schools based on their average daily attendance. So in San Marino, our average daily attendance goes between 97 and 98%. So 97 to 98% of all of our students are in attendance on average every single day, which is outstanding. Now, this bill that Senator Portantino is proposing is really designed for districts that have an attendance challenge. As an example, if you are, if your average daily attendance is 75% and your funding is based on your enrollment as opposed to your attendance, you're looking at possibly 25% augmentation to your funding, which is huge. Now, what Senator Portantino is proposing is that if this bill passes, 50% of that money has to be spent on programs helping to mitigate chronic absenteeism and truancy. So immediately 50% of that money would have to be spent on those programs. So as you might imagine, in San Marino, that's really not an issue for us. We don't have a significant number of students who have a chronic absenteeism or truancy issue. So for us, it will help. Every little bit helps. So it will boost our funding, but it's not going to have the same impact on San Marino that it would have on a larger district in a different environment. So I just wanted to let the board know that that is a bill that we're going to be watching very carefully. And hopefully it will pass because every little bit helps, but it's not going to result in a significant amount of funding for the district. And then I would like Dr. Choi to queue up our presentation on COVID-19. This is intended to be very informative and to answer all the questions that the board and others have had about where we are today with COVID-19, how we're managing that. And our principals couldn't be here this evening. So what we did was we went out and interviewed them. And so we have videos from each of the principals that we're going to share with you. So in their own words, they're talking about the current COVID status or situation at each of their schools. So with that, go to the next slide.
Should we go ahead and start the presentation and then end with the principals?
Yes,
Okay.
let's do that. Okay, so what have we done to keep our students and staff safe since the beginning of this pandemic? Well, the first thing that we were called upon to do, of course, was to stay home, right? So everything shut down and we all had to, if we were employees, we were working from home, students were learning from home. We purchased and we received a tremendous amount of PPE, which is personal protective equipment. I would be remiss in not acknowledging C. Joseph Chang for his considerable efforts in this endeavor. Because of his connections and his resources, we were able to secure just an inordinate amount of PPE. And so thank you, Mr. Chang, for your support in that regard. In addition to that, one of the things that we did fairly early on was we were able to, again, through Mr. Chang's connections, have all of our employees go to USC Keck to be vaccinated. Where others were waiting and trying to figure out what to do, Mr. Chang was right on it, and we were able to get in and get our employees vaccinated, which helped tremendously. In addition to that, our wonderful Dr. Choi and Mr. Chang collaborated to provide on-site vaccination clinics for initially our students who are ages 12 to 18. They were the first group of students to be vaccinated here in San Marino. And then we were able to work through Albertsons, right? Steve, to provide on-site vaccination clinics for our younger students, ages 5 to 11. And so with those efforts, we are in a really strong position to be able to provide in-person instruction. As Mr. Chang mentioned earlier, we have a higher than average vaccination rate amongst our student population and our staff members, which is outstanding. Which helps do air circulating. We've also, we've worked with Mr. Gil Cardenas to upgrade our HVAC systems at Huntington Middle School and Valentine. That is still being done. It's a work in progress, but that's a big project, and we were able to utilize COVID funds for those projects. And then currently, we are told by the county that we need to wear upgraded surgical or N95 masks. And so all staff members district-wide are wearing upgraded masks. In addition to that, we are encouraging students to come to school wearing upgraded masks or surgical masks as opposed to cloth masks. So we're taking every precaution to make sure that we are providing a very safe and healthy space for learning to occur. And also we want to keep our staff members safe. And that is absolutely #1 priority for the time being. So let's go to the next slide. And I wanted to make clear to everyone that the state has given all public school districts in California 2 options this year to educate our students. 1 is in-person instruction, on-campus learning. 2 is independent study. So for those that think that we can just flip a switch and pivot to distance learning or virtual learning, that is not an option for public schools this year. And I really don't understand why it isn't, because I think it was a good option when kids were at home. But it isn't, and I know that the state is really promoting on-campus or in-person learning. They will say to you, CDE, even the county health department will say to you, there's no substitute for in-person instruction. And I think that everyone is very concerned about the potential for learning loss. I do think that for those that don't want to be on campus, that shouldn't be on campus because perhaps they have an underlying health condition or a compromised immune system, they really need an option, and independent study is that option. So we have provided the 2 options. We can't go outside of that for this year. And I just wanted to explain that because a lot of people don't understand why the district can't just go to virtual or distance learning. And that isn't something that we have control over. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lena Richter to talk about our independent study numbers by school. Dr. Richter.
Thank you, Dr. Delatorre. So thank you. It's my pleasure to provide you with a brief overview of our current independent study numbers as of today. And this slide really breaks it down by the 4 school sites, by elementary level, secondary level, and then district-wide, what our totals are. And if you look overall on the bottom right-hand corner, the total number of students currently enrolled or actively enrolled in independent study today is a total of 92. And that includes elementary and secondary schools. Now, when we started in August of 2021, our numbers overall district-wide were over 110 who had selected to enroll in the independent study program. And as Dr. Delatorre has shared, our staff and our leadership and our board has really made it a priority to create a safe and healthy environment for our students to come back in person. And we have done that successfully and very effectively. And this is obvious by the numbers that we see today. a lot of our students who were initially enrolled in independent study have selected to return to in-person instruction. There's no replacement for in-person instruction. Our schools are safe, our teachers are safe, our students are safe. And so as of today, our numbers are only 92 who are currently enrolled in independent study. Those numbers were a little bit lower in December. We had many students who had opted to return to in-person instruction, who had initially been enrolled in independent study. However, we rang in the new year in a way that we didn't want to ring in the new year with a surge in the new variant. And so when we came back in January, we did see some parents who did request for their students to stay home or go back into independent study or start independent study in January. And so overall, the students who have selected to start independent study new, who were not in it previously, are only a total of 4 for long-term independent study. And by long-term, we're talking about a commitment to remain in independent study for the entire semester or trimester, so there's minimal disruption to the continuity of learning. I'm just going to look up here because my computer just went up. And this slide, what I've done, not only have I broke it down by schools, but I've also broke it down by long-term and short-term independent study. So traditionally in August and throughout August all the way to January 2022, our students had been enrolled in long-term independent study, which is that commitment, that recommendation to stay in it for the semester or the trimester. The Omicron variant brought a new level of fear for students who may have an underlying condition or just didn't want to come to school because we saw a surge in numbers. We did not want our students to stay home and be disconnected from learning. We wanted to maintain that continuity, not only of learning, but that continuity of relationships, connectivity with their schools, their teachers, and their peers. And so students also have the option of short-term independent study. Parents were requesting to keep students home for a week or 2 until we saw a decline in the surge. This would be the option for that. It is a 3-week commitment. We do not extend short-term independent study more than 3 weeks. And the reason for that is because once a student is in independent study for more than 15 days, the requirements of the traditional independent study have to be implemented, which are tiered re-engagement, synchronous and asynchronous instructional minute requirements, and so on. So for parents who have opted to have their students stay home, rather than have the students just stay home and not be connected, we've provided an option of short-term independent study. And for elementary, that means that they are connecting with the independent study teacher on a daily basis. They're using their same curriculum, they're just logging in and connecting with the teacher. There is no requirement for synchronous instruction or daily live interaction. For secondary, the benefit of that is the students remain in the courses that they're currently enrolled in, and they're accessing their learning through Schoology, which is what they do when they're out ill or they're sick. They're able to access their assignments, their classwork through Schoology, and they're able to stay in the same classes that they're currently enrolled in. So when we look at our long-term independent study, we see that we have a total of 75. 4 are new these past 2 weeks. We were down to 71, and 4 students decided, or 4 parents had requested their students enroll in long-term independent study for the semester. And that was only at the high school. We did not have any requests at the elementary level or the middle school level. For a short-term independent study, we have a total of 17. And you can see at Carver, we only have 3. At Valentine, we only have 5. Huntington, we have 2. And at the high school, we have 7. So when we're looking at long-term and short-term combined, that gives us the total of 92 district-wide. And again, that is a little bit lower than what we started off in August of 2021. We were over 110. The last thing I want to mention about the independent study, whether it is short-term or the long-term option, a written learning agreement is required, and that is sent out by our office. It's basically a contract for independent study, which clearly outlines the requirements and the expectations of the school district, for the student, and for the parent as well. And those will be sent out this week or next week. We're trying to accommodate parent requests at this point. And I do have to say that I'm highly appreciative of our parents for their patience, for their honesty when they call and they're requesting, but also of our teachers, our administrators, and our school staff. They have been nothing but patient and accommodating. And it goes back to what our student flag salute leader, Sophia, said earlier, is that when push comes to shove, our community comes together, we work together, we do what we need to get done for the benefit of our students. And that has really shown over these past 2 weeks, because it has been a little bit hectic. We really wanted to make sure our students were connected. They continued to learn. I mean, it took a lot of work, and it really took a village to do that. So I'm highly appreciative of parents, teachers, staff, and everybody. And so that's an overview of where we are currently with our independent study program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Delatorre, for the opportunity to speak about our COVID response. And I'll try to be very brief because, just prior to the winter break, the district as well as the COVID compliance team was quite optimistic about the numbers and actually very cautious. But as we were welcomed into the new year, we were welcomed with new COVID policies as well from the Los Angeles Department of Public Health. So just to provide a snapshot of where we are, I think it's still very important to take a look at a very key metric, which is the cases at San Marino Unified School District in our schools. And we've been monitoring cases since the beginning of the pandemic. And despite the fact that the numbers have increased significantly in comparison to when the pandemic started, the county has been reiterating a very key important point, which is the Omicron variant is quite different from previous variants because of the fact that it's so highly transmissible. And just when we were coming back after winter break, the county had sent out a communication to the superintendent as well as the COVID compliance officers to beware that the cases will rise as you reopen your schools in January. And this is actually not a surprise. We currently have approximately 2% of our student population that are active cases at any given time. When we looked at that coming back from January 3rd through now, it's fairly consistent. And a lot of changes have occurred since the start. We've seen a change from a 10-day case isolation to a 5-day isolation. The county, the Department of Public Health, has actually advised schools that should your school reach a threshold of 20% of your students being active cases, that is when the county will come to your school and advise you to require testing for all of your students and staff. Looking at these numbers, we are far below that threshold. We are currently at approximately a little over 2%. So we are far away from that 20% threshold that the county will classify a school as an outbreak school and require our schools to test our students and staff.
I'm sorry, I want to interject. That is evidence that they are very serious about staying away from closing schools. Because even if you have 20% of your staff and students listed as active cases, they're still not going to close your school down. What they do is they require weekly testing. And so that's like the worst sanction you can get if you have 20%. So I wanted to reiterate that because that is what I have been telling parents and principals and assistant principals and teachers and staff who say, why aren't we closing schools?
Absolutely.
So thank you for pointing that out, Dr. Choi.
Absolutely. And one of the adjustments that we will make to this particular table is that the way that it's presented is already outdated. We're presenting active cases for the last 10 days when now the CDC is saying that an active case, you can leave isolation after day 5. So what we will be doing moving forward very soon is updating our dashboard so that it reflects the active number of cases rather than just going back 10 days. Because in many cases, the students and staff that have been cases, they've been able to exit isolation after day 5 with a negative test. So the second metric that I think is very important, it really reflects one of the key layers of mitigation that we do very well here in our district, is our robust testing programs. You know, in addition to vaccinations, in addition to masking, testing is a really important tool to help mitigate spread. So when we look at the testing programs that we offer in our district, we offer really 3 key testing programs. We offer weekly PCR testing. We offer rapid antigen testing for staff and students that may develop symptoms while they are at school or work. And most recently, we've implemented a self-testing program with the help of LA County Department of Office of Education and the California Department of Public Health. They provided San Marino Unified School District with approximately 2,800 self-test kits. And these self-test kits have been extremely valuable in terms of providing us with quick results. As we move forward, and as this surge will continue to increase cases in our schools, we are beginning to transition more self-test kits rather than PCR tests. We're beginning to see that in order to address the cases and to identify cases, we really need to rely on the self-test kits rather than the PCR. So one of our challenges today, and at least for the next several weeks, is to secure appropriate amounts, sufficient amounts of self-test kits for our staff and students. And we've already begun a lot of work on that. I think this key slide here summarizes and shows the capacity that we have for testing, which is quite tremendous. And if you look at our cases, the positivity rate here in San Marino Unified School District is approximately 3%, which is very low in comparison to the county, which is currently at approximately 20%. And so we will continue to closely monitor this. This is just a snapshot of the data that we have thus far from last week. So again, thank you for the opportunity to present these really key metrics in our COVID response.
So in summary, I just want to wrap up by really talking about the cornerstones of our school district's successful and efficient management of this COVID-19 pandemic. While it has been very stressful on all of our employees, our parents, our students, our board, it's just been so taxing on everyone. And I know that our staff, they're exhausted, they feel depleted half of the time, and yet they continue to show up for our students each and every day. They show up and they give their absolute best to make sure that every single one of our students is receiving the high quality instruction, support, and services that they expect. And I am so grateful to all of our administrators, our teachers, our classified employees, our district office staff. And I also just want to say how grateful I am for the leadership and the engagement in helping us to manage this that I've seen through Mr. Joseph Chang and Dr. Choi. You two have been absolutely instrumental in making sure that we can get through this pandemic with as minimal disruption as possible. And I think that we owe you a debt of gratitude. So thank you for your generosity, and thank you so much for your hard work and your expertise in this situation. It's really been quite a blessing to have your support. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Another thing that I would just like to acknowledge is that I have been in many conversations with superintendents in the surrounding school districts who have not had such a great return from winter break as we have. Some of those superintendents had to make the decision to close some schools, And the only reason you can close schools right now in this area is if you have what is defined as a severe shortage of staff. And some of these schools just did not have the staff available to engage in contact tracing, providing enhanced testing, being able to support the numbers of cases that they were working with. And we didn't have to do that here. And we didn't have to do that here because we hired COVID support staff to be able to provide these functions for us with some COVID money. And I think that that was very insightful. And it worked exactly as we planned it to work. In a time where you have a surge, it's not just your traditional staff that stand ready to help in this crisis. So I would like to thank again Dr. Choi for having the foresight to suggest that we hire those people because it has worked out beautifully. So thank you so much. So back to the cornerstones of our success. I think open communication with our public, our community, our district partners has really, really helped us get through this with their support. Teacher, administrator, and support staff's dedication to excellence. I talked about that a little bit earlier. I really believe that we have the absolute best teachers, administrators, and support staff on planet Earth. The dedication and commitment that they exhibit each and every day on our campuses in doing what's right for students just is remarkable in every sense of the word. And in traditional times, teachers are unsung heroes. In a worldwide pandemic, they are superheroes. It has been amazing to watch our teachers come to work every single day. They came back before neighboring districts' teachers came back. Our classified staff never left. Our maintenance and operations crew, our nutrition services workers, they were here from day one, making sure that kids had what they needed. And that was just amazing to watch. And so I just feel so incredibly blessed to have the best employees on planet Earth. And without them, we might be in a very, very different situation. So we owe them a debt of gratitude. And Gil, you have never left. So thank you so much for your leadership and support. There used to be a director of maintenance and a maintenance manager. And as we know, through reorganization, we lost the director, and Gil has stepped up and stepped in wherever we need him. He has done an amazing job and is absolutely top shelf. So thank you, Gil, for your dedication. Same thing with Judy Correnti. In human resources, through the reorganization, Judy has stepped up and in. She's done an amazing and a beautiful job. She's really been instrumental at the bargaining table this past year in reaching agreement and getting things done. So really, our employees are the heart and soul of this district, and they make sure that our kids get what they need. So I've already talked about COVID compliance team and COVID support staff and how important that is to our success. Transparency, just being open and honest about what is going on, what's happening in our schools, and what the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health is telling us that we need to do, and the changes in guidelines that they have instituted over time. Communication, communication, communication. That is so critically important. And we find ourselves constantly communicating. We communicate up, we communicate down, we communicate laterally. And we have been at the bargaining table with our labor partners from day one. Much of the change that we have needed to embrace has been negotiable. And I just can't say enough about how willing our labor partners have been to come to the bargaining table, to negotiate in good faith, to really educate themselves and others about what the facts are, really understanding the district's position and situation, knowing that we have to work together in a small school district like San Marino, and how critically important it is that we walk side by side and that we support each other. And it's all in the name of doing what is best for kids. So I've really appreciated having that open communication with both CSEA and SMTA. And then, of course, what makes San Marino so uniquely special in so many ways is our parent and community support. You saw that this evening with Rotary coming forward, Mr. Dennis Neer stepping up and giving the school district a very generous donation that's going to go to teachers for innovative projects at their schools. We're so grateful to Rotary and other community partners who donate to the schools and who really are standouts in terms of giving of themselves in the name, again, of what's best for kids. And then, of course, our parents have really exemplified what it means to be resilient during this pandemic. When kids were at home, they had to step in and be parent and teacher and support staff and do all of these things for their kids that they would not ordinarily be doing. And it took a lot of energy and passion and commitment, and they did it. And they did it with a smile on their faces. And they were so supportive of the school district in all the changes that we had to make. And how grateful are we for all of the parents and community members in San Marino, like PT affiliates. These are people who have gone through the schools. Their kids have graduated, gone to college, moved away, and they come back and they help us be the best that we can be. They give their time, their money, their resources, their experience. They share all of that with our school district, and they enrich everything that we do. We have PT affiliates running our summer school program. That is amazing. And there's no salary attached to that. That is all volunteerism. Remarkable that we have that level of commitment. So thank you to everyone. But those are the cornerstones of our success in managing any crisis, but especially what we've had to endure the past couple of years. And I think as a community, I think we're all tired and we're all looking for answers, and we're hoping that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I am with you on that. So please know that the school district supports you. And as our wonderful, lovely president, Nam Jack, said, we're going to treat your kids as if they're our very, very own. And we will continue to do that. So with that, I believe we're done.
Actually, I'd like to share our principal.
Oh, yes,
to
please.
share a few
Yes,
words from our
please,
principal.
please.
Here we are. Well, we're here at Valentine Elementary School today to get a status update on COVID-19. Principal Faré, you've been back on campus for over a week now. How have things been going?
All things considered, we're holding our own here at Valentine. Everybody's been working really hard to keep all of our students and staff safe since we've returned from the holidays. We've been doing pretty well with our attendance overall. We've been averaging about 90% attendance through the week, and this week our attendance is up to about 93%. I think the biggest challenge really has had to do with staffing, but thanks to the district office, the hard work of Rebecca Gutierrez and all of our credentialed staff, we've been able to cover the classrooms that we've needed to. Everybody's worked really hard to be helpful, to lend an extra hand, to make sure that every student is getting exactly what they need in terms of their instruction. I would say that's been our biggest challenge, but we've met that challenge and we've been continuing to provide incredible instruction all the way throughout the last 7 days.
What are you most proud of in terms of managing the crises?
Well, that's an easy one. I am most proud of our teachers and our students, our staff. Everybody has worked incredibly hard, and our parents have been so incredibly supportive. We've been working to communicate the new guidelines clearly. I think there's been, with the addition of some of the modifications, there are lots of questions, but we've really taken time to make connections as much as possible to talk to parents by phone, to communicate by email, make sure that everybody's getting the information that they need to make informed decisions. You know, we're in the midst of a marathon here, and in every marathon, you've got to be really well paced. I think that's something that we are doing well here at Valentine, and it really takes a team effort. Our team leaders are working really closely with each other, with their grade level teams. There's great communication going back and forth from home, and our staff, our COVID support staff, our health clerk, Maria Butron, and our COVID officer, Geraldine Davian, they have provided incredible support for us with all of the additional rapid tests that we are doing and the close contact tracing. So with those incredible staff members in place, I'm confident that we can meet whatever need we have to keep all of our students safe at Valentine. You know, in spite of COVID, some things remain the same. And one is that children love coming to school and they love playing with their friends. And I see that every day at recess and at lunch. That is something that hasn't changed, and we are doing so well in that department. We're keeping everybody safe. We are transitioning to the new modifications, and everybody's just been on board with that, been really helpful with that. And so I think I can say and assure our Board of Education and our families out there that students and staff, our teachers, everybody is really doing well at Valentine.
We are here with Principal Dr. Lynn at K.L. Carver School this morning to get an update on the current status of COVID-19. Dr. Lynn, you've been back on campus for over a week now. How are things going at Carver School?
Thank you, Dr. De La Torre. I want to start by saying Happy New Year to everybody. And I would say that the start of the new year has been quite busy. And of course, the health and safety of our students and staff is always our #1 priority. Now, we came back, Carver is the first school to be tested every Monday. And so we were lucky on January 3rd to come back and to have the omni-privet testing school-wide done at Carver. Now, the next day, of course, we were able to find 7 cases in 7 different classrooms, which happened, I guess, during winter break, but we were able to contact trace over 120 cases in a very vast and extensive contact tracing effort, and we were able to control the amount of cases, hopefully, and attenuate and mitigate a lot of those measures. Now, one of those measures that we are able to put in place very effectively is very adequate ventilations in each of the classrooms. Also, students are required to be masked. Our staff are required to wear a surgical mask, KN95 or an N95 mask. We encourage parents to send students in wearing these types of masks as opposed to woven fabric masks. Also, many of our students are now are getting fully vaccinated. So that has helped a great deal. Although we cannot require vaccination, we highly recommend that students who are qualified and qualified for vaccination get vaccinated as soon as possible. We have, we remind kids to wash their hands. We remind kids to keep a safe distance while they play. We remind kids to also just enjoy school. School is a place where they come. There's the social emotional learning component. There's character education. There's academic rigor. There's recess. Students, we have a firm belief that students always come first at Carver. And our teachers get continual professional development opportunities. We have teachers who collaborate on a regular basis. Our teachers enjoy being with each other. It's not just in weekly collaboration team meetings, but they have lunch together. They ask questions. they help each other. And it's not just grade level teams, it is also vertical articulation among grade levels. And that's what keeps the innovation continuously happening at Carver. Where we look at opportunities where students' needs are being met, because student needs are shifting right now. We've seen that through distance learning last year. There's a certain gap of learning that has happened. And we take that as an opportunity where we can address those needs in a very effective manner through professional development. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Lin. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you have faced during this pandemic?
Now, one of the biggest challenges, and this is, no surprise, I mean, we've had a shortage of supplies, and this is not just unique at Carver. This is everywhere. There's a supply chain crisis that's happening. Let it be food services where, menus are constantly changing and parents are like, wait, you published this menu, but then my kid is getting another lunch. We're doing our best in terms of communication, and we have a labor shortage, of course. That's always a challenge. And again, that's not unique to Carver or to San Marino Unified School District. We're experiencing this because of the larger crisis that's happening nationally and internationally. But we are addressing this through communication, through empathy. We're hearing input. We're making adjustments. We have time for collaboration among professionals. And the bottom line is kids always come first, and we need to address the needs of our kids.
And what would you say is going particularly well, given the circumstances that you're having to face?
I would say teamwork. Carver is not a school without the collaboration of not just among the professionals here that call this home, but our amazing volunteers. They're at the front lines too, helping with this cause. Nobody wants school to close again and go into distance learning because we've seen the effects. I shouldn't say nobody, but it is important that we keep school open as the primary option for our students, because there's a strong socio-emotional learning component that happens that is not tangible, that a student cannot really enjoy over a screen. And so it is important that students are at school, learning, interacting with other students in a healthy, safe way that we can provide.
Dr. Lin, what would you say is going particularly well at Carver, given the circumstances that you're having to contend with?
I would say what's going well is the team effort that's happening here. And the team is not just, staff, faculty, and administration. The team includes our amazing parent volunteers that are pretty much at the front lines in terms of helping the school answer questions. There's a lot of questions that's happening right now, and a lot of people are concerned. We do hear input. We want to hear input. We want to make the school better for our families to serve our students better. So with that, I want to thank our volunteers and our PTA leadership and the support of our community in this effort. One of the things is that we strongly believe that the students are safer with the multiple measures that we have put in place at Carver School that I mentioned earlier. A focus on ventilation. We have a HEPA filter in each classroom at minimum. Students are required to wear masks. Teachers and staff are required to wear surgical masks or above. Frequent hand washing reminders. We have multiple hand washing stations that are portable outside. We have multiple portable hand sanitizing stations outside. Just many layers of safety measures put in place that I would say that students are safer at school than if they were in the community.
We are here this afternoon at Henry E. Huntington Middle School to talk with the principal to get a status update on COVID-19. Principal Topalian, you've been back on campus for over a week now. Tell us how things have been going.
Man, it's been awesome just to have the kids back from winter break. We knew it was going to be a challenge for everybody. We knew the surge was coming with the Omicron variant. However, this has been a wonderful return back to school. The staff has really adjusted and pivoted, knowing what we were going to facing. Our COVID staff has been amazing under the direction of Dr. Stephen Choi, to Ms. Asha Lee, and to Mr. John Martinez, with the assistance of my assistant principal, Mrs. Mary Hazlett, have done an amazing job making sure our kids come back and our kids are safe. And it's a wonderful place to have your kids at a middle school right now, especially with all that's been going on. So I'm extremely delighted to have our young people back.
Principal Topalian, what challenges have you faced during this pandemic, and how have you been able to manage them effectively?
I think the biggest challenge has been the changes and the adjustments. We go from the Delta variant, then we go into winter break, and then we come back, we hear about this surge that's been happening. We're experiencing the surge now. That's been the biggest challenge, and the biggest challenge is making sure our kids are staying safe. However, like I said before, man, I am so pleased and blessed with the staff that we have here, from our instructional staff, be it my teachers, to instructional aides, to the student support staff under the direction of Ms. June Gonzalez, my school counselor, to Mr. Don Duranzo, to my assistant principal, Ms. Mary Hazlett, the support that they're giving our teachers and to give our students to make sure that we're back. It's been a big challenge. There's no question. We'll get our students tested. And also the challenge is once we find out we have a positive case, those close contacts and how we communicate to our families and to communicate effectively and clear messages. And I believe that we're doing that as a district. I know it's hard sometimes when you get that close contact or you get that positive case that we're having. But I think also what's effective behind the scenes is the numbers that we have and minimizing those numbers so we can best keep Huntington Middle School open and keep it safe and great for kids.
What do you think has gone particularly well throughout this COVID-19 pandemic?
What I think has gone particularly well really is the support that our staff has given one another, not just to our kids, but to each other, to fill into a class where maybe a staff member is absent as a result of COVID, helping and supporting each of their peers and their colleagues to make sure that instruction is still happening. Sometimes in a situation like this, it just stops. And we're able to keep functioning and keep moving. Our teachers are able to keep doing the great things that they do each day. Students are learning, they're engaging. And I think it's important our teachers are still opening up their rooms for student support and the academic support that they're getting, their math and the sciences and the English, which is extremely important, as well as all the club activities that they do at lunchtime, even our hangouts, where students are able to come in and just play chess, do board games, do the fantasy league stuff that they're doing with our teachers on campus. And that separates and it kind of removes the whole idea of this Omicron and the variant that's there, and with our attendance. And our attendance has been great. I want to touch base on that real quick. We're just above 85%, which is awesome considering all that we're facing. And that's a tribute to our teachers doing what they need to be doing in the classroom, students what they're doing, and parents being responsible with their kids. So again, parents, if your kid's not feeling well, please don't send them to school. We want to keep this a great place. But if they're feeling good and they're ready to go, bring them. Even if they're a little anxious, and I'm sure that's going to happen, especially at a middle school. But we're keeping our masks on while we're in classrooms. And even with a mask on, I was out at PE watching kids doing high jump today. All those kids are masked. Right now we're at lunchtime, and kids are doing a great job keeping themselves masked. So that's been those challenges.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Jason Kurtenbach.
We are here with Principal Kurtenbach at San Marino High School to get an update on the current status of COVID-19 here at the school. Principal Kurtenbach, you've been back on campus for a week now. How are things going?
I would say things are going exceptionally well, and that's in large part due to the same thing that makes everything go well at San Marino High School: great students, great staff, and great community. Everybody has been pulling together to do everything that we need to keep our schools open. Kids are masked at all times, and they have been transitioning from the cloth mask to the surgical or N95 masks. All of our staff wear these surgical or N95 masks. Mine's in my pocket now since we're outside. We've had and maintained 80% attendance since the beginning of the surge, and we actually improved today from last Friday. We've only had a couple of staff members out each day. Haven't really had to cover classes at all because our resilient staff has been supporting each other, as well as reaching out to our students who have to stay home by connecting with them on Schoology and Google Classroom. We've been able, for the most part, to continue to play our athletic games, although when we are canceling, it's because other schools in other districts are not able to field teams because they are coming up with more positives than even we are. Our students are doing a great job of staying connected to each other. You can see them out on the quad every day, still being happy, still being able to interact with each other, which is really helping their social emotional resilience as well. I would say that if I still had a student in high school, this is where I would come because I feel the most safe here and the most connected. And this is my happy place now.
Great, thank you. What are some of the challenges that you've had to face in this environment, and how did you manage them?
I'd say the biggest challenge is having to shift to all of the new requirements of the county, and that's just how we test, when we test. So when we knew we were coming back and we knew we were seeing cases increase as we were seeing our athletes report more cases during the holiday, we added an extra testing day the Thursday before we returned. We tested 300 students, found some positives. We planned another testing day that first Monday, found some more, and we continued with that process by adding a Monday and Wednesday each week. That then leads to the contact tracing, which takes a lot of time, but because we have an excellent staff of COVID compliance officers throughout the district, one at each site, led by Dr. Choi and Asha Lee, we've been doing a great job. It takes a little bit longer, but we do pull together. Our COVID compliance officer, Elizabeth Reuter, has been outstanding. Not only does she work hard and never complains, she's able to connect with all of our other staff members who can support her. She trains them up, gets that support, and then she's able to keep everyone calm and connected. She gives me the information that I send out to our community, and because it's so clear and consistent, we get very few questions. We get a lot of positive responses from our parents saying thank you for the communication. We feel safe and comfortable and taken care of at San Marino.
What do you think has gone particularly well during this crisis?
I would say it's our staff. I always say we have a remarkable staff, but the calmness and the resilience that they've shown the last week and a half has just been amazing. Even when they're a little bit concerned, they bring them inside, we talk it through, we come up with options and opportunities for them to feel better, to provide support for students. And they have just been persevering through every different challenge and every new thing that the county asks us to do. They're just like, okay, we can handle this too, and this too shall pass, and we will be stronger for it. So I would say that my number one most impressive thing about our school through this crisis has been the teachers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Principal Kurtenbach.
You're welcome.
So there's a theme, right? It all comes back to staff. And having such dedicated staff members who are resilient and wonderful volunteers and parents. And I think that, again, is what has allowed us to keep our doors open, keep our kids in school or in independent study. And I think that despite the challenges that we have faced, our team has been able to step up and manage it. And I am so, so proud of how we have come through this pandemic and this surge. Really just a success story. And I'm so grateful again for everybody's help and support. So that is, in summary, where we're at with COVID now. And of course, we will entertain any questions that the board may have. Yes.
Stephen, can you go back to the slide when Linda just started? And she was thanking everyone. Before that one? Oh, after that one. Sorry, I forgot where your slide went. The one where she was talking about the COVID, all the COVID. Okay. Before this one, I think. I don't know where it is. Okay. So I'll just speak on it. So Linda was sharing a little bit about Mr. Chang and how he really was at the forefront of the vaccinations and it is there. Okay, the vaccinations as well as having, now Mrs. Jack talked a lot about interconnectedness and how with the game, all the pieces fit. We pull one piece and it doesn't. So I just want to, on a personal note, thank Mr. Chang. I want to tell the story of, I got the call that I was going back to work. And I remember feeling, well, I didn't even buy a mask. I don't even know where to go and get one. And I happened to be on the phone with Mr. Chang. And Joseph said to me, oh, no problem. I'll just bring you some. And I said, well, my son's going to work and he doesn't have one either. And so I got him to bring a whole bunch over. And I'm not telling the story Joseph, I apologize, I didn't check with you before telling the story. I'm not telling the story just to only thank Joseph for what he's done, but he goes above and beyond. He thinks about the kids. He has been a mentor for me this year in terms of his leadership, but also just what he does on a personal level. He doesn't think about like himself or maybe, you know, hey, maybe I should save some of these. He just drove over and just gave me the message. Okay, you go to work and you know, give this to your son. And he did that. Another thing I wanted to just talk about is just how Mr. Chang and Dr. Choi has worked on building our relationship with Chinatown Services and bringing the mental health and support piece, not only through our wellness center, but through our connections within the community. So thank you, Mrs. Jack, for coming back. Thank you, Mr. Chang. And I want to thank the rest of my board and cabinet as well, because, you know, together we're going to succeed. Together we're here to ensure all of the children here in this community are our children, and that we are all pulling together to move in the same direction towards safety and overcoming, you know, the adversities that we're facing. So thank you, Mr. Chang. That was a long, short story, but I wanted to make sure I said that.
Well, I think it's the teamwork. I think that we are very lucky in this community, in our school district. I think during the pandemic, you know, we work together. Yeah, we are not have too many directions. Some of the organization, you know, they have a different direction. Yeah, so they can consolidate. So I think that's the most important. Secondly, I think that I'm just lucky in other organization, so they can give us the support. Even now, you know, before Omicron, people think it's gone. So I remember after another organization, after they get a second shot, so everyone they hug. They think they can go back to original life, but then you know, the last two weeks, Omicron come. You know, people they are stay the attitude with the last several months. Yeah, be more cautious. Yeah, so I don't want to talk too personal, but you know, because my every day I'm dealing with this. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago I bring the one person from the China. They haven't done any vaccine because they believe the U.S. vaccine. So she just got the first one. So after New Year she will get the second and then to leave. Yeah, and I think the most lucky, you know, when the district and appoint the Dr. Choi as the COVID-19 compliance officer. Yeah, it's really get the good fit. Yeah, and you know, he not just serve as the head. You know, when have some project, he stay there. You know. Not like if the vaccine clinic the staff, he's not it's not just you guys do it. He there every minute from the early morning until the finish. Because for me, I will go when I finish in my own stuff.
I know, but he didn't
checking,
drive the mouse
but
over
he
to my
always there.
house. He knows where I live and he didn't come over, so
Yeah.
that's why. Yeah.
Because you know, especially from the 5 to 11, I have some the worry because I don't know what happened when we have a vaccine station here. I don't know how the parent they can control their kid. You know, we did have a one there, the kid were crying and then screaming. Yeah, they doesn't want to get shot. Yeah. So it's a real the experience, but we are able to overcome. Yeah, we really lucky, you know. So I always say the during the last 20 months, if you are healthy, I think you are lucky. Yeah. No complaint. Yeah.
And, oh, sorry, just one last thing. So lastly, Linda and Stephen, please thank the principals. I thought that was really nice that they put that together to kind of give us the state of the site, but also, you know, to keep the numbers down here in terms of our meeting. So thank you.
Absolutely.
that.
They have just been doing a great job.
Yes,
So thank
yes,
you
it
for
speaks
acknowledging
to, but it also speaks to the team leadership as well.
Yeah,
So
thank you so much.
But one thing we may need to pay attention, still you probably want to observe, because I interviewed a couple Omicron the patient, yeah, by phone. They say they did not know when they get it. But the only thing I think they think maybe when they are eating, because when eating they remove the mask. So end up, you know, we need to pay attention about when our student eating the lunch. Yeah. So probably when they get the meal, may not, you know, sit together too close. Yeah. Yeah. So that otherwise, I think right now after 1 year, everyone get used to wear a mask. During the class, I think everyone is doing, yeah, but only when they are eating, yeah. So this probably need to observe, yeah.
There were 3 questions you posed to each of the site leaders, the challenges, what they were most proud of, and what was the third?
How is it going on your campus? What are some of the challenges that you have faced and how did you manage them effectively? And what's going well? And what are you most proud of?
So I wanted to pose that question to you from the perspective of your district site. I know you don't have students,
right?
And I know you're going to say your staff, which is fine. But you know, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share at the district level what is it that you've been proud of, and what are the challenges, and you know, how is it going at the district level? Because you guys, we're not seeing what's happening at the district, but you're sort of, you know, managing all of it.
Yes, thank you for asking that question. Currently, what's happening is all superintendents in LA County are meeting virtually with Dr. Ferrer, Dr. Gilchek, and Dr. DeWarder from LA County Office of Education every week. And we are talking about some of the challenges that we're experiencing district-wide. That is very helpful. We are also at the district level looking at the suggested guidance of the county related to the public health department. As an example, recently, Dr. Duardo said that we should stop all surveillance testing and focus just on the active cases. Dr. Choi was privy to that communication as well. And then we, you know, as a district, we weren't going to act on that until we got something from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And we didn't receive anything from them. So we're not doing that. We're just following suit. So I think we've been challenged with trying to navigate through some of the guidance and making sure that we're keeping our students and staff safe and that we're following the LA County Department of Public Health guidance. That's what we're committed to. And at the same time, we really just need to make sure that all the services and support that students are supposed to be receiving, that they are currently receiving, whether they are in on-campus learning or in independent study. So I would say that I'm so incredibly proud of how this district has managed this pandemic. I talk with other superintendents constantly, and we all have our challenges. But again, I think the community support and our staff really make the difference for us. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you.
Can
Mr.
I-
Clarky?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. First off, I wanted to thank you and your cabinet for a very comprehensive, very informative presentation. I think that it answered a lot of questions. It provided a lot of information in a lot of different areas. And so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask Dr. Richter, I just wanted to clarify. I think you covered it very well, but on the short-term independent study, that is an opportunity that if a parent or a student of a parent feels more comfortable with the student not being on campus, particularly, for example, during the current surge for the next couple weeks, they could enroll in a temporary short-term independent study. They would not necessarily be disenrolled or removed from their on-campus classes. Is that correct for that short-term period?
Yes, so let me just back up just to answer the first part of your question. It is an option. It's not one that we are offering as we did for independent study, because we noticed that students were staying home for very valid reasons for fear of the surge. And rather than have them be at home and disconnected, we wanted to provide this opportunity so that they can continue to be connected, continue to learn, and just so there's no disruption in their learning. So this opportunity is available, and it is the maximum amount of time is 15 days in the short-term independent study. For any independent study, the minimum amount of time is 3 days. So we've already had 2 families who have been in it for a week and will be returning back to in-person because the contract clearly states the timeline that the student is enrolled in short-term independent study. They'll be returning on Monday, and 2 have already returned back to in-person learning after a week. Yes. So to the second part of your question, the students will not be disenrolled from their current classes. For the long-term independent study for grades 6 through 12 specifically, they are continuing to learn with an online curriculum called Apex Learning. So they no longer are technically enrolled in their high school courses with their high school teachers. They are now learning independently through the online Apex courses. They are still part of the San Marino High School and Huntington Middle School community. They continue to receive all the communications. They are more than welcome to engage in any of the activities that are held on campus. Any invitation that goes out to all families also goes out to them because they still are part of that community. But they are not attending the classes that they were previously enrolled in. They are now enrolled in Apex courses. So they're not communicating with their classroom teachers, they're communicating with the independent study teacher who's doing a phenomenal job, and that's Ms. Hannah Fong.
And that's during the temporary, the short term or the long term?
That is the long term.
Okay,
For the
thank you.
short term, for grades 6 through 12, again, they are not being disenrolled from their classes and not logging into or engaging in an Apex online learning course. They are logging into Schoology and sometimes Google Classroom to access their learning, their classwork, their homework, their assignments on a daily basis. But they're not Zooming with their teachers, they're not attending class. It is done independently.
But they would communicate maybe through email or so on with their
Classroom teacher.
On-campus teachers.
Absolutely.
Okay, because they're still part of that class.
Correct.
Okay, and there's no limit on the number of students that's available to. Correct?
No, because a student in any class, just as they would if they were sick, would be able to log into Google Classroom or to Schoology to access their coursework.
Okay, the limit comes on the number of days, which is once you get to more than 15 days, then you get fully transferred over to the long-term independent study.
Correct.
Okay, I really appreciate that because that, if that's something that's right for a family, that may alleviate some questions that they may have had about whether if they do this for what hopefully will be a short-term period, that they're somehow going to be disenrolled from their classes and therefore it might affect their college transcript, their transcripts for applications to colleges and so on. For the first 15 days, that can be avoided.
Absolutely. And that's one reason why all the schools direct those requests to me personally, because I do want to make sure the parent understands what the program is about, what the requirements are, and help communicate the difference to what we had last year, which was distance learning compared to independent learning, independent study. And parents are very appreciative of the clarification. And based on the information they received, they at that point make a decision whether to continue to enroll in the independent study, short-term or long-term, or remain in person.
Great. I really appreciate it. I think that answers a lot of questions. So thank you.
You're
You know,
welcome.
there was another thought that a question that I had that came to mind, and it may logistically create issues that are much bigger than the question. But the question came to mind based in part upon Mr. Chang's comment as far as lunch and people potentially being a higher level of risk exposure if they're taking their mask off and eating. Is there the potential, even if it was a short term or maybe longer, to sort of break up, to either one, have multiple lunch sessions at the secondary, at the high school, for example, or two, at least expand the areas on the campus where students are in fact able to eat so that they can spread themselves out more? Is that something that's been considered?
So one of the first executive team meetings that we had when we returned from winter break, we did discuss this issue. And as a matter of fact, Pearl Zuka has been instrumental in working with purchasing and the principals to order additional tables and chairs. And we have talked extensively about making sure that we are keeping our students socially distanced during lunch. I think there is a staggered lunch currently, right, at the middle school, or is it Valentine? Sorry, Pearl, I should be calling on you to answer this right now. Anyway, we are working with the principals, and so that is in line with our thinking on that as well. And we are fortunate enough to have Pearl Izuka helping us with that, along with Francesca Gill in purchasing and each one of the principals. So we will follow up on that, of course.
Great, I appreciate that.
Sure.
I'd like to ask for clarification or explanation, just so I make sure I understand, because I may have misunderstood prior explanations of this. I don't know if it was conflicting information or I just misunderstood it. But as far as who is on the dashboard, when we look at the slide, for example, if we could pull up the slide that was on there earlier. When we're looking at the number of positive cases on the dashboard, is there a specific way in which you must test positive in order to be placed on the dashboard? And are we aware of anybody any student, for example, that may have tested positive in any way that is not on the dashboard?
Number of active cases that are on-premise cases. So the dashboard itself, as of right now, reflects active cases from the last 10 days. And that will ultimately change due to the isolation change from 10 to 5 days. But your second follow-up question is, are there times when you have a positive case and it may not be on the dashboard? Now, we could have a student or even a staff member, for that matter, test positive, for example, over winter break, and they've been entirely off campus, never set foot on campus. That would be deemed an off-premise case, and that would not be on the COVID dashboard for the district. The dashboard only reflects on-premise cases.
And on-premise means the person was on-premise within a certain time frame related to the testing positive, or the actual test that resulted in a positive finding was done on campus?
So it is through contact tracing that we determine whether a case is on-premise or off-premise. And the rationale behind that is because if it is an on-premise case, there is a chance that there may be transmission, right? If the case was an off-premise case, then there would be no possibility of transmission. And that is not what we're tracking. We're not tracking off-premise cases.
Okay, because I was looking back during the presentation from the principals, and I think I had heard that the middle school and the high school were at about 85% attendance. Okay, so that's, I don't know the exact numbers, but at the high school, 875 students, you're approximately over 125, 130 students or so are absent a day, for example, for the last week. Do we know how many of those students that are absent are positive, or are they absent for some other reason?
So when parents or students report an absence, they have to report why they're out. Now, we have, through contact tracing, is really our only way. If we do see that a student has been out a certain number of days, we will find out from the parent whether or not it is an excused absence due to COVID. Now, if they do not report that, unfortunately, we don't have the information. And students and even staff, for that matter, may be absent, not due to COVID. They may be out due to the cold or flu. So it's you know, there's no clear-cut explanation for why someone may be absent. It's not entirely clear whether or not it's COVID or not.
But one thing to acknowledge is that our attendance, and we've been looking at this, we looked at it the Monday that we returned and then the Monday of this week. We're, as a district, there are 92% of our students in attendance. And that is a very good number compared to neighboring schools. So especially when our average daily attendance is 97 to 98. So if you're at 92, the day that we come back from winter break, that's success. It really is, because typically, I mean, even in a normal year, sometimes parents are traveling and they don't return the day after winter break. Their kids come back later. So our attendance usually dips. So this was very, very positive.
No, and I understand that, and that's great. I was just, and you're correct. I mean, if those numbers show that. The thought that I had, and I understand that there's probably certain assumptions that are not necessarily true in the concern, is if we've got 15% of the high school, for example, which is out, and we've got a certain number of additional students that are on the dashboard that have tested positive, with 15% plus a certain additional amount, are we getting close to a 20% where the county should be stepping in? Or is it, no, that's not actually a fair statement, because people could, one, most of those people have not tested positive or told us that, or two, they're out for some other totally unrelated reason. So that's what I'm trying to find out is there a mechanism to try to find out why these people are absent, why the students are absent? It sounds like, yes, there is, but again, it's subject to whatever information we're given, right? We're not requiring COVID tests if somebody's out for a certain number of days. Is that correct?
Well, no, our policies are very clear with our COVID staff and attendance staff. When they receive a report from a parent or guardian reporting absence due to COVID, that is definitely tracked and investigated by our contact tracing staff, the COVID support staff. Now, the county metric of that 20% of cases of your student body, the county isn't saying that if 20% of your students are absent, you would shut down your schools or do weekly testing. You're saying if 20% of your students test positive at any given time as an active case, that's when that policy would kick in.
Right, yeah, I completely.
Also, Stephen, if you could talk a little bit, I think the question, and I'm not sure this is what Mr. Kalaki is after, if we're seeing 130 cases out of 875, and contact tracing is in place, and there is no direct link between each of the cases, that's when the county comes in, because the county doesn't just come in on that 20% figure. Am I allowed to speak? Because you're kind of staring at me, so it's making me, all right. Did you want to speak some more?
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, so.
I mean, I have additional questions, but go ahead, finish your question.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
No,
I
go
was
ahead. You're in
trying
the
to
middle.
help
It's okay.
Stephen
Go
to
right
talk
ahead.
about the link. No, you go ahead.
Okay, so I understand that the 20% is not based upon absence. I'm just wondering, is there any mechanism to, if somebody has been out for a certain number of days, that we request a test or require a test, or does the county require a test if somebody's been out for 4 days, for example?
No, we don't have a policy in place where we would require someone to tell us whether or not they're positive. This is health information. And
There,
Okay.
the county has been clear about that. They have said to us numerous times, right, when we're in these meetings, at some point you just have to trust your parents and your community to be forthcoming and transparent about this. And they're not requiring us to even get photocopies anymore, right, of a positive result.
right, they're no longer requiring that. The county's accepting self-attestation.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
By the way, can I make a conclusion? Yeah. You know, I think the dashboard serve as a statistic, just as a vehicle to know what's going on within this area. So because for the US, we are not in China or Taiwan or the Japan, yeah, we cannot force to do the testing or whatever. So actually, all the data is like a comparison. So dashboard is like a diary, okay? So today this number happened. So if the next day or next couple of days they drop, then we see in this community, I think it's a drop. So that's like a comparison figure. So definitely we want to be very accurate, but it's very difficult, especially after Delta they go to Omicron. Look like everyone right now. You know, before you get a Delta, nobody want keep quiet because I don't want to you stay with me. But right now, Omicron, everyone look like they are okay, freely to say, oh, I have one, or you have one, oh, good luck. And after 3 days, we see each other again. So that atmosphere in the public health is a changing. Yeah. So that's the reason you know. I think that's the reason. I think LA County they are not. They trying to stay in person continuously because and also the data support in the inpatient hospital, inpatient tertiary hospital. Yeah, the death rate also drop, but before it is high. So that all the factor, then the cost, the model. So I think the public health they have to do the different way. The only thing they said, oh, because it spread very quick, so everyone, yeah, no longer fashion, okay. So everyone wear the surgical. So you can see for the last 2 days, the closed mask is gone. Everyone bring the KN95. You know, I bring the 200 KN95 to the Huntington Library the last week. Before, you know, the library gift shop, they all have a very beautiful. But right now, everyone they change, except maybe they put one surgical and then put a close. Yeah.
We
Okay,
are
that's my.
we're all very lucky, Mr. Chang, that Huntington knows you and we know you because you know people. So we're very lucky. And I appreciate all the questions from the board members. And Linda, we really, really, really appreciate, on behalf of the entire board, I think we can all say, you know, the beginning of the year report, as I call it, or the beginning of the year communication, where you've communicated to us what is going on, especially with the COVID numbers and things like that, and the independent study and even everything that you've done. We really appreciate it. But I think we're going to have to move on because it's 9:30 and we are still not to our student board member. Now, one of the things I said earlier is how lucky we are in this community, and we are lucky as a board to have a student board member. Karen, again, for you to be here, you know, for you to come all the time. And I know it can be tedious and I know it can be hard. So I appreciate, you know, the two words we've used a lot are patience and flexibility. So Karen, I really, really appreciate and thank you for being our special board member. So we'd love to hear your report today.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll quickly advocate for that whole presentation there I will compliment the COVID testing and the support staff that the campus has had and that the district has given us. Firsthand, it is so efficient and easy. Like you walk it, and it takes 2 minutes to set up a profile. They scan it, they test you, and then results come within a few days. It's the most easiest thing I've ever seen. And it's amazing. Students wholeheartedly appreciate being able to do that since PCR tests are pretty impossible to schedule right now and self-tests are sold out everywhere. So I'll just thank you again for that and let us move on with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. I so appreciate, and I so appreciate your, you know, personal experience with what they've done. So thank you again. All right, number 10, communications from the audience regarding matters on the information agenda are to be made at this time. Dr. Choi.
Thank you, President. Jack, we're going to pause for 1 minute to take requests to speak regarding matters in the information items on the agenda. If you would like to make a request to speak, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card.
This specifically relates to item number 11, right? The updating the CSBA policy numbering.
Correct. I believe we only have one agenda item under information items tonight.
Okay.
We have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request to speak regarding the information items on the agenda, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, we have one request from San Marino Teachers Association. San Marino Teachers Association, your line is now open.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I just wanted to confirm that the comments are, I just wanted to clarify where we can comment. What is this section for?
This one is for the updating the CSBA policy numbering.
And this is only for 11A, correct?
Yes, it's only for it's only for 11.
Okay, thank you. No comment.
All right. So procedural item number 11A, updating CSBA policy numbering. Dr. Delatorre.
Yes, President Jack, members of the Board of Education, Student Board Member Nguyen, executive team. This is an information item only. And as part of the transition to the new CSBA platform, CSBA is recommending that we change the current policy number of Board Policy 5131.1 to 5131.15. So this doesn't change the policy at all. It simply changes the number to align with their new codification system.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's move on. It is not an action item. So unless anyone has questions, I'm going to move on to number 12. Okay, communications from the audience regarding matters on the action agenda are to be made at this time.
Okay, we're pausing for 1 minute again to take requests to speak regarding the action items on the agenda. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, we have 30 seconds remaining. If you'd like to make a request, please press the raise hand icon, dial *9, or submit a public comment card. Okay, we have one request from San Marino Teachers Association. Your line is now open.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Choi. I'm going to speak a little softly here. I'm not 100%. I'm a little under the weather. But Namjack, thank you for the kind and the wise words that you shared earlier in the meeting. Your service and the sacrifices you make and you are making go far beyond the mark, and no one will truly know how much you're doing. And you truly exemplify service, and you are very much appreciated. And thank you to all those who shared such kind words regarding the service of those on the front lines. On that note, here is my message to you and to those listening. It is never too late to do the right thing. It is never too late to make wrongs right. Teachers as a bunch are altruistic. They show selfless concern for the well-being of others. And that is why 70% of the general voting population trust teachers. They listen to them and they trust what they say. I am a teacher. Please carefully consider the thoughts I'm about to share. After learning that COVID monies designated for compensation were largely spent, teachers were rightly disappointed. But the district made good by using monies in the general fund to compensate those who served on the front lines. Amazing and wonderful. While negotiation teams were going back and forth, those representing the interest of teachers were mindful of the district's financial worries. We listened when, during negotiations, district members alluded to financial crashes and the possible loss of staff. It was harrowing, but we listened and we investigated and we studied. While working towards a compensation that fairly represented all those who were on the front lines equally, no heed was paid to salary scales. Why did we do this? We knew, and we know now, that we were all in it together. We were equally exposed and equally burdened. We chose not to be divisive in our efforts. We also chose to be fiscally responsible. We didn't think it was right that a senior teacher would get paid more or a junior teacher would get paid less for doing the same work. We set a good example, and we demonstrated what working in good faith looks like. Unfortunately, the district has not chosen to follow that example. We congratulate district personnel on their successes and on their potential 3% ongoing raise. Well done, well deserved. However, a 4.7% bonus.
1 minute remaining.
And may I have just a little more time? I'm really struggling with speaking. However, a 4.7% bonus in one-time monies falls short of acting in good faith, and here's why. CSEA members will receive a 4.7% one-time increase, but many of those frontline workers, it will just equal over $1,100. And the maximum payout will be a pittance compared to the bloated checks district leadership will receive. For district leadership, the one-time monies are tied to salaries. They may not only get more than anyone in the district, but but how is that fair? How does that meet the spirit of the law? Of which law, or the law that governs trust and mutual respect for teachers who walk the pavement and the parents who join them. Regardless of whether here during the 2021 school year or not, the majority of district leadership will receive one-time monies ranging from $6,000 to $11,000. I ask you and all those listening, how do these compensations, which range from $6,000 to $11,000, represent the spirit of trust and responsible stewardship? The answer is it does not. Please, I ask you to foster trust among those of us who depend on your leadership. Study the proposed compensation as it applies to district personnel. This is not an attack. This is a plea to do what is right. I'm so proud of our district. Look at everyone who gives so much.
Time has expired.
We are San Marino. We can do this. We can hold hands, fix this, and hold our heads high, knowing we acted in service to our community and those we represent. Please do the right thing. It's never too late, and it's never wrong to simply do what is right. We love and sustain you. We support you. It needs.
Thank you. All right, we are now on action item number 13A, certification of signatures. Dr. Delatorre.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the Board of Education, Student Board Member Nguyen, executive team. We have before you this evening a certification of signatures that includes our Food Services Director, Munira Bengali, and she just began her employment with the school district, and we will need to make sure that she is an authorized signer for food services warrants.
All right, are there any questions? Okay, it's an action item. Will someone make a motion?
Approve.
Mr. Chang, a second?
Second.
Mrs. Chan, roll call vote. Mrs. Chang?
Aye.
Sorry. I think I'm tired already. Mr. Chang, aye. Mr. Kalaki?
To confirm, this is 13A, correct?
13A.
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan?
Aye.
Mrs. Jack? Aye. Student member? Aye. Unanimous vote for certification of signatures, item 13A. Now we go to 13B, San Marino Teachers Association tentative agreement. It's an action item. Dr. Linda Delatorre.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the board, Student Board Member Nguyen, and the executive team. I'm exceptionally pleased to present to you a tentative agreement between the San Marino Unified School District and the San Marino Teachers Association. This agreement includes a 3% across the board salary increase. In addition, the 2021-22 school year salary schedules for 184 days, which includes a decrease in the number of work days for the upcoming year with no commensurate reduction in pay. We have, in addition to that, an off-schedule compensation for teachers and specialists that is equivalent to a 4.7% off-schedule increase. In the 2017 year, we negotiated a 1% off-schedule increase. That was a percentage given to teachers, specialists, classified employees, management, and at that time, the superintendent. It is very typical for school districts to enter into a percentage increase off schedule. As a matter of fact, we have surveys that demonstrate that very clearly in a variety of school districts in the neighboring area who agreed to a percentage off schedule increase. We are very mindful of the fact that everyone in San Marino Unified School District receives the same amount of compensation. Never in our history has any one particular group, of which I am aware, received more than the other. This one-time off-schedule amount is $3,000 for unit members who are employed by the district as of September 1st, 2021. And then there's a $2,000 payment that is for employees employed by the district as of January 1st and who are continuing to be employed as of September 1st, 2021. So when we first went to the bargaining table, as you will recall, we did propose a percentage off schedule. It was the association that felt very strongly that they wanted this time, the first time, to go with a flat amount for every unit member, which was a departure from what we had agreed to before. So the district took the 4.7% and divided it by the number of bargaining units to come up with the $5,000. And then it was further negotiated to differentiate that into two separate payments. We also agreed that we would meet and negotiate health and welfare benefits for the upcoming school year. In the spring of 2022, as soon as the renewal rates are released to the school district, which we predict will take place sometime in February. And then, of course, we agreed to some changes on Schedule B, which are indicated on Exhibit A of the tentative agreement. Also, there is an instructional calendar for the 2022-23 school year, which is included as Exhibit C. And the start date for 22-23 is going to be August 10th. The student instructional year for 23-24 school year will begin on August 10th as well. At the district's discretion, we may add an optional professional development day to the 23-24 school year. And we made some language changes as are identified within the tentative agreement. We are also looking at the evaluation procedures, and we have agreed to create a subcommittee comprised of members of the district and members of SMTA. The last time that we did this, I think it's been over 10 years since we've looked at the evaluation procedures. So we're not saying that we're going to do anything differently, but we want to look at the evaluation instruments that we currently have in place and the procedures that we are currently using, just to make sure that we have the best evaluation tool possible. And then the contract term is extending the existing agreement through June 30th, 2024, with the understanding that during this time, the parties can meet and bring forward their reopeners along with salaries and benefits for each of those years. So any questions on the tentative agreement between SMUSD and SMTA?
This will be the actual wording of the agreement.
Yes. The changes that you see underlined are additions, and then there are some strike-throughs.
And are we provided information as to whether SMTA has approved this or not?
Yes, they did ratify this agreement. Their membership voted and it was ratified.
More questions? Is there, oh, I'm sorry.
I just had one question. In
Sure.
addition to the evaluation committee, there's another to be determined regarding the schedule change for later start as mandated by the new
yes.
law.
Mhm.
So I think I received an email as a high school parent that decision was going to be made by spring break
Mhm.
in terms of what that was going to look like. So I just wanted to put that out there, that is something that is going to be worked on, it's forthcoming, and that's going to be something determined, I guess, through a series of input from the staff, from the administration and community, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. There will be meetings to discuss that and in collaboration with SMTA members and the two secondary principals.
If there aren't any more questions, I'd like someone to make a motion to approve the agreement between SMTA and SMUSD.
I move to approve the agreement for SMTA and SMUSD.
Mrs. Chan moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ryan, roll call vote, all in favor. Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Mrs. Jack, aye. Student board member?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously passes. Now we go to item number 13C, California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 120, tentative agreement. Dr. Delatorre?
Yes, President Jack, members of the Board of Education, Student Board Member Nguyen, and executive team. This evening, you have before you a tentative agreement between the San Marino Unified School District and the California School Employees Association, and it's Chapter 120. We have the same salary agreement in that we are giving a 3% on-schedule increase to CSEA and a equivalent to a 4.7% off-schedule increase. The dollar amount is $2,100 for CSEA. Again, I reiterate that is equivalent to a 4.7% off schedule. And it is also consistent with past practice that CSEA has an MOU so that if we negotiate with them before we negotiate with SMTA, if SMTA receives more, they have a Me Too in their contract, and so they would be entitled to that as well. Same agreement with health and welfare benefits. We will come back and negotiate that with them as soon as those rates are released from the CBA JPA. And then on the remaining articles, we have agreed to return to the table in March of 2022 to continue negotiating language items. Let's see, that's it. And we do know from President Marguerite Lindsay that this agreement was ratified by their membership as well.
Any questions from board members?
And this one?
Sure.
The Me Too agreement, the MOU, I'm sorry,
Yes.
the MOU that has the Me Too provision. What does that say?
Actually, Their Me Too is in their contract. So it's not in a separate MOU. It is in the collective bargaining agreement.
And what is it? What does it require?
It just says that if any other unit receives more than CSEA in any given, and I'm not quoting this verbatim, but I'm happy to send you the language, that they would be entitled to the same.
Okay, so my concern, my question is, when we're comparing the CSEA tentative agreement to the now approved SMTA agreement, correct? The SMTA agreement does not say anything about 4.7%,
But that's what we talked about, and that's what it equals.
but the agreement does not say anything about 4.7%.
No, but that's what we discussed at the bargaining table. That's in our notes, and that is exactly what we talked about. We would not do anything different for anyone, ever. We've never done that before, and we wouldn't do that going forward. And Pearl Azuka is here to address that if needed.
I think it's important to go by the words of the contracts. That's what governs. That's what is binding. It's what's bargained for.
Right. And so either way, it's the same. So SMTA, if you take their $5,000 per unit member and you add that up, it equals 4.7% of the cost of their salary schedules.
Except the contract doesn't say that.
No, but it does. It's a fact,
It doesn't say that.
but doesn't matter because it is
That-
4.7.
What I'm saying is that math outside the four corners of this contractual agreement may result in whatever math it results in.
Right.
But this contract for SMTA
Mhm.
has no reference or explanation that it is 4.7%. What it says is that on September, for employees that have been employed since September 1, it would be $3,000. And for anybody employed since January 1, it would be an additional $2,000.
Yes. So the majority of the unit is receiving the full 5. Employees who are no longer here are not entitled to the full 5.
In the SMTA agreement.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
My concern is that the CSEA agreement may not necessarily satisfy the Me Too provision in their.
It does. We had counsel review it. We're confident it does.
I think it's also, you said that CSEA also already ratified.
Yes, they already ratified it. They're getting 4.7.
So they read it as being consistent with
Yes.
the understanding of what is in the collective bargaining.
That
agreement.
is correct. And they also had a regional representative there, and their legal counsel looks at it as well.
So there
It's
was
called
no
a-
misunderstanding on CSEA's part
No.
of what they would be getting as a provision of the Me Too.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know what CSEA's understanding is.
They ratified.
Well, they ratified it, and they have what's called a 610 process, where they have to take their tentative agreement to their attorneys and their representatives, and they have to approve it before it comes to their unit for a vote. And then we have a labor attorney that's at the table who is guiding us and advising us on these matters. And so it's already been reviewed, it's already been ratified, and it all equals 4.7%.
My concern is that if we are comparing it to the SMTA approved contract, which has no reference to 4.7%, then it results in the CSEA agreement having a very small amount. And it also potentially has a spillover effect into the next item on the agenda, which we've not yet started to discuss in any way, which is one-time money for management and unrepresented employees. If we're comparing it to the SMTA contract, the SMTA contract speaks about $3,000 and $2,000 and has no reference to 4.7%.
Okay, thank you for your.
And we have concluded on our vote for the SMTA contract. So right now we're discussing the CSE.
That's correct.
contract, Right?
Yes, thank you.
Well,
So-
yeah, and that's actually what my point is that if the SMTA contract is concluded and completed, then it's a done situation. And now the other contracts are compared to that contract.
No, these are standalone contracts that are voted on independently by the units and by us as a board.
And the standalone contract for CSEA says, look to the SMTA contract. So when you look to the SMTA contract, it doesn't have any reference, explanation, footnote, language of any kind saying 4.7%. It says $3,000 and $2,000. So therefore, my concern is that to satisfy what's required by the CSEA contract, the CSEA should be receiving $3,000 and $2,000 under the same higher terms as laid out in SMTA. And that should also be applicable to the management and unrepresented employees in the next agenda item.
So I thank you, Mr. Kalaki, for that. But I think unless we have any further questions, I think it's up to us to vote. I'm going to go first. I'm going to say yes to the CSEA contract because based on what you said, Superintendent Delatorre, when we negotiated with the Teachers Association, the amounts that were referenced totaled the 4.7%, and that was the understanding. With respect to CSEA, that is their obligation to have their attorney review it to see whether or not it complies with the Me Too provision that they have. And so I am satisfied that their attorneys reviewed it because they did ratify it to say it was 4.7%. So my assumption is that their attorneys reviewed it to say that it satisfied the 4.7 Me Too % provision. So unless we have more questions, I'm going to ask someone to make a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Ryan, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Chan, so we're going to go roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan?
Aye.
Mrs. Chan?
Aye.
Mr. Chang?
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki?
And we're voting on the CSEA
Yes.
agreement only, correct?
Yes.
I'm going to vote nay because of my concerns stated.
All right. My vote, aye. Student board member? Aye. Motion passes. Now we come to 13B, management and unrepresented employee tentative agreement. Dr. Delatorre.
Thank you, President Jack, members of the Board of Education, Student Board Member Nguyen, and executive team. You have before you this evening the memorandum saying that we will adjust management, administrative, confidential, and unrepresented salary schedules by 3% across the board effective July 1st, 2021, and to provide a one-time off-schedule payment of 4.7 to management, administrative, confidential, and unrepresented employees who were employed as of July 1st, 2021, which is consistent with both the SMTA and the CSEA off schedule, except that it's not a lump sum. It is a percentage. So it is not any more money to the district than what is being received by SMTA or CSEA as far as off schedule goes. And historically, we have done percentages. In the past, other districts do percentages. It is just a different method. That means that some people within the management, administrative, and unrepresented will get more, and some people will get less based on wherever they are on the salary schedule, which, if you think about it logically, is the same thing that we do when we give an across-the-board increase. So if we give an across-the-board increase, which we have to all employees, it is not based on a lump sum, it's based on wherever you are on the salary schedule. So if you're making $100,000 as a teacher and you're getting a 3% across the board increase, that 3% means more for you as a teacher that's earning 100,000 than it means for somebody who's earning 50,000. And that is the same inline practice that we decided to go forward with, that many other neighboring districts have gone forward with. SMTA and CSEA just had a different preference in how they are receiving their one-time off schedule.
Is that usual? Because the way I've seen it before is it's always a percentage. And so if it's a percentage, then, you know, I've never seen, you know, finite, lump sum numbers. So why this year? Are there lump sum numbers for CSEA, lump sum numbers for SMTA, and, you know?
That's how they wanted to proceed with it. So if you think about it, we came to the board and we asked for authority to give a one-time off schedule percentage. So when we were talking with the board, we were saying we have X percentage to give off schedule. And so it started with that.
Can I just insert for a moment?
Yes.
When we talk about as a board, the percentage of authorization, it is because we are looking at our budget.
Yes.
Impact.
Correct.
And so for us, our job is not necessarily dictating how the monies are being paid out.
Right.
That is determined by the bargaining unit.
Yes.
And how they're negotiated.
That's correct.
Our responsibility as a board is its impact ultimately on the budget.
Correct.
So when we gave the authority for that percentage amount, it was given in mind that is, what is this impact on the budget?
It was given in mind with what we can afford. And yes, you are absolutely correct.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, but you just explained it beautifully. Thank you.
Can I just add, say one concern that I do have about that? Any of this discussion that is now happening in open session about what people thought in closed session, I would assume is not correct.
But I wasn't talking about what
only
people
here.
thought in closed session. I'm just saying that we were talking about getting authority in percentages. That's not expressing people's feelings or what was discussed or anything like that.
I'm not accusing any individual person. I'm just saying this open session item deals with whether we approve this contract or not necessarily talking about closed session justifications or thought process or mathematical equations or anything else that happened in closed session. Am I correct?
Sure. Then if you don't feel comfortable with the course of the conversation, which I understand what you're trying to get at, can I take it in a different direction? If you don't mind. So what I just talked about when I was talking about the budget impact, I wanted to look at this in terms of budget impact. So I started pulling the numbers out, and it looks like we're changing our budget by $2,178,360.
Yes.
Right? This year only.
Correct.
So the budget that we had approved previously, we are now looking to increase our expenditures by over $2 million. And we are going to be paying for that out of reductions in our ending fund balance, correct?
Correct.
And so over time, not including any negotiations that take place in the next couple of years, we are, sorry, I keep cutting out because I keep turning my head. So given that we're going to be looking at this over the next couple of years, it looks like, which I appreciate the multi-year projections that were provided. That was very helpful. And I looked at the fact that our ending fund balance would go down by about 2 million, over 2 million every year, and to the point where we end up at 10 million, I think, in our current year. So when we look at the impact of all of this, we were being conservative.
Yes.
Intentionally, so.
Yes.
So I think it's important to note that there was no misrepresentation of what our priorities were.
Right.
In terms of what the overall impact would be on our budget.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that. I wanted to take it a different direction because I understand what you're concerned about, Mike, and I don't disagree with what you were alluding to in terms of how the conversation was moving.
Yeah, I just was listening to what you're saying, but I don't I didn't understand at what point you were referring to as far as a misrepresentation occurring or not occurring.
I was referring to a misrepresentation that somehow we were not being careful in how we were deliberating over the budget.
When?
I was taking into account comments made from people in the community over the course of about, how long have we been negotiating now? 2 months? 3 months?
Ladies? Longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, longer than that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that for item 13D, that the amounts reflect the amounts laid out in the SMTA contract of $3,000 and $2,000 based on hiring dates of September 1, 2021 and January 1, 2021.
Is there a second? No second. So we're going to move on. I have a question, which is, so I just want to understand. So when we talk about a Me Too provision, that means on schedule and off schedule. So it's not as if CSEA would get an on schedule and off schedule, or administration only gets on schedule and not off schedule.
So two things. The first is that CSEA has a Me Too provision contained in their collective bargaining agreement. Management just has a past practice of always, from the beginning of time, getting the same amount as CSEA and SMTA. That has been our past practice. So it's not formalized, I guess I'm telling you.
But when we say the same amount, does that mean on schedule and off schedule, or does that mean just on schedule?
It means both, because in 2017, we agreed to an off-schedule 1% across the board. So that was for SMTA, CSEA, and management and unrepresented. So that's just an example of us all getting the same amount off schedule. And historically, whenever we've done an on schedule, it has been commensurate. So Pearl, perhaps you can help explain this because you are an objective, independent expert who has been in many, many districts, and you understand this intimately. It's basically what the total compensation is, not excluding benefits, right? For each unit. So talk about that.
Well, but Pearl, my question is, when we're talking about Me Too provisions, right? For administration, right? At all the places that you worked and you've overseen, and so is that Me Too provision, it includes on schedule and off schedule? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
Is that the?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's okay.
And let her answer your question.
Sure. So Pearl, can you talk a little bit about, in your experience, what it means in terms of CSEA having a Me Too and SMTA having a lump sum amount?
So the way, as we've been discussing, the calculation was based on what they wanted as a flat amount or set dollar amount. We backtracked and figured out that that was going to equate to 4.7%. The cost to give that 3 and 2, it costs us the equivalent of 4.7%. And so that's how we said that we had to put that in the CSEA language so that they would understand how we came up with the 2,100 for them. Because there would be no basis for us to just throw a 2,100 number out there without showing how we came up with that. And that was our way of showing the Me Too for that group. So that's how we came up with that number.
And they could have received a 4.7% off schedule.
Yes.
Right, which would have meant that some unit members would have had less than a 4.7 and some would have had more.
Correct.
Right?
But the cost would have been the same.
Right.
It would have been spread out for those that
Exactly.
would make more would get more, and those that are making less would get less.
Right.
But they chose, as so did as the SMTA, to have a flat amount. So we started with SMTA. That was our first contract that we worked with. And then based on what we agreed to, we had to figure out a way to calculate what that equivalency was so that we could give that Me Too to CSEA.
Yes.
So the management does an administrative, the management unrepresented employees do not have a Me Too provision at all, or they only have a Me Too provision with regard to on schedule?
No, the management and unrepresented do not have a contract. So we don't have language that says that we're entitled. We only have past practice. So if you go back 30 years, 34 years, as long as I have been here for over 3 decades, management has always consistently received the same as certificated and classified. Because if you think about this, if you gave certificated and classified raises and you didn't give management raises, eventually they would be making more than management, which would be totally inconsistent to any other district around and to any organizational hierarchy, right? So it doesn't make sense to pay your management, your principals, your assistant principals, your directors less than you are your classified and certificated. And I'm going to tell you that your management and unrepresented staff has been working harder than ever throughout this pandemic, 12, 15-hour days, Saturdays, Sundays, through winter break. Dr. Joy was on the phone constantly with Jason Kurtenbach and myself, dealing with a situation at the high school. So there's no rest for management and unrepresented. It's constant. And I feel compelled to say that because they are sort of unsung heroes. I mean, they are constantly under the radar, and our accounting department, who has to be here, even if it's a winter break or spring break and there's a payroll running, they're here. They're here when no one else is here. And I think it would be a huge mistake and oversight for us not to support our leaders and our administrators. I mean, you saw each one of the principals presenting today. They have worked tirelessly to keep their schools running. They're like CEOs of their schools. That's a lot of responsibility. And to not acknowledge the work that they have done throughout this pandemic, to not acknowledge their contributions, I think is just very sad.
And to clarify, that's not what I'm saying in any way. I am not saying that, and that's in fact why I proposed the motion I did, which was to give them a certain amount of compensation, but to have it match the SMTA contract and have that be what it would be across the board. But I am absolutely not.
So for some of our principals, though, that would be half.
But I would like to know, Mr. Kalaki asked whether or not, with past practice, it was on schedule and off schedule. And that's the question, that I know I keep asking, but that's, if that's been our past practice.
It has been.
Pearl, I have one question. Dr. Delatorre talks about the fact, right, that there isn't a contractual agreement, unlike the others. Is that the way other districts work as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so other districts also, the administration is just a past practice thing where it's a Me Too.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to ask one more time for both on schedule and off schedule.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Are there any further questions?
Can I just ask just one
Sure.
last question? Is there a number that this all equates to? How many dollars are we talking about with regard to what's proposed in 13D?
So that's the 1200 document that we have.
Is that the one that was
So that's the two.
provided tonight or as part of the board packet?
The one that was sent and updated into the board packet. So the salary schedule for year one, 244,551 represents both the 3% and the 4.7% total impact on our budget.
Yes. that
For
is-
management and unrepresented administrative only.
The document that has the yellow on it, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I had to write it down like 3 times to make sure I understood it, which turned into a lesson to my daughter about how to absorb math numbers when you're not a math person. If you are ready, I would like to make a motion.
Yes.
So I move to approve the management and unrepresented employee tentative agreement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ryan, roll call vote. We'll start with Mrs. Ryan.
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mr. Kalaki,
Nay.
Nam Jack, aye. Student board member?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Dr. Delatorre, let's go to 13A memorandum of understanding. But before we do, we are close to the 10:30 deadline, so I'm assuming we're going to make it. We've got 10 minutes. So I'm assuming we're going to make it. So if we could do the MOU and we just have 2 more action items. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. President Jack,
Yes.
members of the board, student board member Wen, and executive team, we have before you this evening an SMTA MOU regarding substitute service. And this memorandum of understanding is temporary in nature. It's through the end of the year, and it is allowing a shared interest and value of maintaining the continuity of learning and supervision of students during instructional time. Any questions on the MOU?
Do we have any estimate at all of what the impact will be on the budget for this?
Do we have that? It's hard to tell because it's really going to depend on how many teachers are covering for other teachers. And so we don't know, but we do know it will be manageable for us through the end of the year.
Can I ask, is this, I see the signature of Leticia Aranda. Does this represent that it's been presented to and ratified by SMTA, or what does the signature represent?
Yes,
Okay, ratified by the SMTA.
right, Judy? Yes. Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
With that in mind, is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Mrs. Chan, is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ryan, all right, roll call vote. Mr. Kalaki,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Chan,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
myself, I, student board member. All right, motion passes. Now we go to 13F, updating CSBA policy titles.
Yes, President Jack, members of the board, student board member Wen, and executive team. This evening, we have before you an updated list of CSBA policy titles. We do have some unique policies, and in order for us to keep those, we needed to update the titles so that they're congruent with CSBA's recommendations. And so you have in your packet a chart that shows you the policy number and then the district title in the old gamut system and the new title for the new system. So if you'd like, I can go through this, but I think you
No, I think
probably
we're
already
fine.
looked at it.
I
And
covered
in
it.
order for us to make the 10 minutes,
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Okay, are there any questions?
I just wanted to say I appreciate Mrs. Delatorre, Jennifer Delatorre for making it larger font.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yes, me too.
Thank you, the other
Thank you,
Mrs.
Jennifer.
Delatorre.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so could I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Mrs. Chon, second.
Second,
Mrs. Ryan, roll call vote. Mrs. Ryan,
aye.
Mrs. Chon,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
I,
Mr. Kalaki.
Aye.
Okay, myself, I, student board member. Aye. All right, motion passes, and it is now 10:26, and meeting is adjourned. No need to go to
when
closed
I share something with you very quick, yeah. I review the LA County Supervisor meeting agenda. So there's one recognized Korean American Day. So in the January 13, 2022, yeah, it's as the 119th anniversary of Korean American Day.
Wow.
So I think Jane and I will be inviting you to our homes for a Korean dinner. Thank you very much.
Sounds good.
In order to move it, gavel closed, meeting ended. Thank you very much, everyone.